This is the start of the stream, and let me tell you that the timer is locked already, even though I'm just starting. I got a lot of super chats last stream, lots, so it's already locked. Zyruvi says hello. Hello, Zyruvi. Captain Ghost says, what's up? Hello, Captain Ghost. Spatula says, let me cook, chat. Spatula says, woo, we're wolves, we own the night. Okay. Tyler says, how long is your dick, bro? That's private. Squilliam says, day 49 of asking Don, how's life? Good. I'm in a silly mood right now. Juan says, hi Don, how are you? As I said. Lemon says, yo bro, hello. Hello, Lemon. Yo, Abenev says, you are becoming famous, dude. Somewhat. Scooby says, good afternoon, Don. Hello, Scooby. Ashton says, hi. Hello, Ashton. Josh says, smile. No, I'm not a dog that listens to commands. Shino says, hi, Don. Hello, Shino. Spatula says, Pookie. Hello, Spatula. Promo2 says, did you start at 420 because of your silly mood? No, I'm not a fan of 420, that number. I never was a fan of that number. Zyruvi says, how was your Easter? Okay, solid. Popcat says, why did he become gay? What do you mean? I'm not literally gay, but maybe I'm zesty or something. Cyber says, how are you today, Don? I am great. Dam says, would you eat the skeet out of teat for treat? I don't know. No comment. Josh says, Don, come to my house. I don't know you. No. Lemon says, yo bro, bye, got to go. See ya, Lemon. Alicia says, Popcat Roblox, he is not gay. That's true. Bailing says, what's your favorite number? Mine is 67. Mine is 24. Cyber says, great to hear, man. Thank you. Popcat says, do you like Jesus? I liked his Sermon on the Mount speech. Kai says, I'm gay. Okay. Rebecca says, hello, Don. Hello, Rebecca. Alicia says, I do. What do you do? I don't know. You believe in Jesus? Billy says, hi. Hello, Billy. Preston says, hi. Hello, Preston. Chopper says, hello from Pakistan. Hello, Pakistan person. Juan says, are you constipated? No, I feel fine. Fun says, hi. Hello, Fun. Vor says, I'm gooning. Okay. WT says, hi. Hello, WT. Joseph Barrera says, Don is the GOAT. Source, trust me, bro. Thank you. By the way, there's a YouTube Shorts live streamer named Matthew who kind of inspired me to live stream. He's part of it, part of the inspiration, and he's streaming right now. So if you keep on scrolling, maybe you'll find him. Zyruvi says, Ali says, Don, I hope you have a good day. Thank you. Ali, can you communicate that back? Had says, really? What? D3 says, hi. Hello, D3. Preston says 67. Okay. Alex says, you're weird. Okay. Popsicle says 67. Okay. By the way, D3, I remember that PlayStation profile picture brings back memories. Had says, what your day right now? What? Sav says, what happens if the time runs out? Then I end the stream. Passion says, I subbed. Okay. Dam says, Don Benitez is actually Don Benitez in disguise. Yeah, that's actually right. Had says, how good was your day? Above average in some ways. Mia says, bruh. Okay. Cold Slayer says, Donnie, got Coke? I only have water. Fort says, oi. Okay. Miex says, hi. Hello, Miex. Yo says, why you have no emotion while reading comments? Because, I mean, there's a little emotion in there. Miffy says, hi, what's your name? And you can look at my username. Anastasia says femboy. That's not me. Rebecca says most guys' favorite number is 18. Okay. Hey says whatever that is. Pringle says, do you play any video games? I was playing Rainbow Six Siege, and I was griefing earlier. 11 says, goon on me. No. No. Joe says, furry. Okay. Scenario says, how old are you? I'm an adult. Lily says, what is your dream job? Filmmaking. Delinquent says, sometimes when you poop, a drop of water will come up and hit you back. Okay. Bolshevik says, what is your opinion on the fall of the Roman Empire? They were too ambitious. Popcat says, are you married? I'm not. Alice says, ooh, you're a furry. No, I'm not. Glimp says, you gay? I'm straight. FDK says, do you remember me? I haven't been in your stream in a while. No, I don't. I get thousands of messages. Koro says, can you be my daddy? No. Coldslayer says, Dawn, you somehow aged a year but in a week. Really? I don't see that. McFlurry says, opinion on women's right. Like, should they vote? I think they should vote. I believe in women's rights. Sag says, do you goon? No comment. Delia says, hi, how are you? I'm great. Jeremy says, hey Dawn. Hey Jeremy. I love YouTube says, hi. Hello person that loves YouTube. Saba says, how long were you here for? I've been streaming for 6 minutes. Koro says, do you have sex? No comment. Kai says, what's your PH account? I don't know, but Cash Patel's pornography account got leaked earlier. JJ says, do you play Roblox? I don't play that kid's game. The WR says, marry me. No. Amber says, do you like enslaving for the black people? What? I don't. I already read that. Beak says, you're a gooner. Okay. Chef says, my name is racial slur. Okay. Angie says, you're handsome. Thank you. FDK says, what the fuck, bro? I'm your sneaky link. I don't know you. Says, what's your opinion on Artemis 2 so far? Cool, disappointing? I don't care for it. Homeless says, Don, what's up, bro? Hello, homeless. Dolly says, meow. Okay. Timothy says, you are addicted to your screen. Yeah, like most people. Ad says, what's up? Hello, Ad. Kai says, I meant Pornhub or OnlyFans. No comment. Froggy says, goon. Okay. James says, hi. Hello, James. Neo says, how tall are you? I am 5'7". Therian says, hey. Hello, Therians. Nikki says, I'm gay. Okay. Chef says, my dad was in 9/11. I'm sorry. Corbin says, and my name is Corbin. My name is Neela. What are you on about? Brian says, hi. Hello, Brian. Ugly says, I'm sorry you have to deal with these people. Don't be. I have no problems with it. EJ says, not a femboy, not a fanboy, not gay, not furry, vampire. Goth, steampunk, bobblehead dance, or something else. I'm not any of that, that's right. John says, how long are you staring at your screen a day? For hours, too much. AD says, cheers. Thank you. Jake says, how old are you? I'm not a minor. Hey says, you look like your mom and dad had a baby. Yeah. Popcat says, do you believe in Santa? Never did. Toothy says, poop. Okay. April says, hi. Hello, April. I don't know says, can you please give me a shout out? No, that's so lame. Brad says, Donald, hope you had a great last few days, my boy. Now it's time to lock back in with your people. Yeah, with my fake friends. I might lock in. I may stream tomorrow. Coldslayer says, you know King Tut's Mapipi? I don't know that. Fat says, bye VR. No. I don't know says, demon emoji, clown emoji. Okay. Nath says, you have a good Easter? Yeah. Retro says, what's your opinion on the people saying weird things and insulting you? I don't mind it at all. Zaruvi says, Ali fixed her YouTube studio to allow others to redirect. I may raid them if they're live when I end the stream. Retro set, already read that. Beak says, I know where you live. Okay. Says, what's the most embarrassing moment in your life? I don't know. I don't have an embarrassing I wish I had more embarrassing moments. Because I'm not ambitious. FDK says, I'm the one with the eggplant emoji. Okay. Just says, stop looking at your screen, but I'm streaming. Parasocial says, my fans are so trash and I hate them. By the way, this is not me. This is the letter L in parasocial is a capital I. FDK says, I'm the one with, I already read that. Hi says, are you streaming? Yeah. Big says, what's good? Hello, Big. Thou says, go outside and feed the ducks. No. Lucas says, hi. Hello, Lucas. Enzo says, if being gay is your superpower, what are you without it? Myself. Thou says, I wash water. Okay. Mister says, I like big oiled up men. Okay. Divin says, hi, it's not a good day for me because my dad died this morning. I'm sorry to hear that. Bailing says, not gonna lie, but you are gay. Okay. Coldslayer says, will you have more content on your channel? I want to publish shorts, but I need someone to make them for me. I don't want to edit them myself. Big says, he's not gay, chat. Okay. Hunter says, see. Okay. And when I said shorts earlier, I mean like highlights of these streams, but I don't want to make them myself. Pookie says, what video games do you like? I like Rainbow Six Siege. The Life says, do you like raccoons? Yeah. Sonic says, D a Windows server. Okay. I don't know what that you're on about. Girl says, read my fucking message. There you go. Scooby says, yeah, with my fake friends made me laugh so hard. It's true. Sad truth. Robert says, rip Jax VR. Okay. CR7 says, would you clap Epstein or Diddy? No comment. Coldslayer says, who cares if anyone is gay? Okay. Cad says, how old are you? I keep that private, man. Pringle says, do you do anti-sport? What does that mean? Jay says, hello. Hello, Jay. Lime says, guys, I'm bleeding out. Someone call 911. Do that yourself. You commented on a stream, so you should be able to. Zeke says, shit. Okay. Formerly says, have you ever pooped a full ring around the toilet? No comment. Jube says, I'm subbed and liked, and you're my favorite YouTuber. I don't believe you. 2 says, Halo, play now. No. Coldslayer says, only gay people. Look for more gay people. Okay. Bagel says, I'm gay. Okay. Dorito says, hi. Hello, Dorito Dust official. Enzo says, we are Charlie Kirk. Okay. G says, have you ever played Minecraft? I have thousands of hours on it. What says, chat, spam, sea lion. That's so lame. Brad says, I already read that. LH says, what's your favorite color? I like gray. Why are you asking that question? Are you like... You seem like you're too young to be on YouTube. Aaron says sea lion. Okay. Kaith says yo. Hello, Kaith. Ryan says bro's so antisocial even to the people complimenting him. What? The Babby says, why does this exist? Because people are bored. George says, have you ever watched Bruce Lee? I have, yeah. Lil says, would you goon to Epstein? No. Marcus says, read my Minecraft comment. Just type it again. Brother says, you are gay. Okay. Nevea says, hi. Hello, Nevea. Aaron says, are your eyes red? They do look a little irritated. V says, read my It's comment, not come. Koro says, have you heard of the saying, the grass isn't greener at the other side? Yeah, many times. History Enjoyer says, do you think Clint Eastwood is a good actor? Sure, and that's a cute profile picture. Matthew says, I liked and subbed, I promise. Okay. Leah says, oh? What? Sean says, I love you so much. Thank you. Zeke says, what do a duck you? What? Red says, hi. Hello, Red. Christy says, ayo. Okay. Hey says, we are gay. Okay. Cruz says, yo, I'll be your editor. I don't trust you. Just by how you're typing and your profile picture, you sound like you would do a terrible job. Hushin says, what's up? Hello, Hushin. Jacob says, I liked, and subscribed, I promise. Okay, thank you, I guess. The Loveland says, read my comment, bro. I just did. Base says, what's up? Hello, Base. Loki says, do you like bugs? No, I don't. History says, you like my Stonewall Jackson profile picture? Yeah, I read a biography on him, and I enjoyed it. Kai says, rest in peace, Jax VR. Okay. 2 says, do you like Halo? Please play it. It looks... I don't like the look of the game. I'm not gonna try it. Jess says, beef burger or chicken burger? Beef. Sino says hi. Hello, Sino. The Golfing says, do you think Johnny Depp was a good actor? I enjoyed his movies. Brad says, bless us with another stream later tonight. I already told you about streaming at this time. No, I'm not doing that. You're not that special. Zane says, I think he is getting held at gunpoint. No, I'm not. V says, do you think I'm gay? I think you're not. I think you're straight. YouTube says XM. Okay. Homeless says, have you ever played Helldivers? I haven't. Is that related to Halo? Juju says, Don. Hello, Juju. Kurt says, would you marry a guy? I would not. History Enjoyer says, was it Rebel Yell? Yeah, that was the book. That was the title of the biography. CR7 says, you have 67 seconds to clap Epstein. Okay. Josh says, not gonna lie, Helldivers ain't related. Okay, got it. GJ says, you're probably the least cringe short streamer. Thank you. Cyber says, what's your opinion on Jim Carrey? I'm not a fan. Pomni says, why is the comment so weird? Because I don't moderate. Sky says, for real. Okay. Hi says, 9/11 was an inside job. No comment. Sen says, MWOG market, and I don't know what you're talking about. Ayana says, hi. Sarangaho. Hello. Alfie says, hi. Hello, Alfie. By the way, let me say that I think my... You know what? Never mind. Screw what I was gonna say. Pomni says, by the way, love your streams. Thank you, Pomni. Cool Kid says, I goon to you. Okay. MKA says, do you like Steve Harrington? I don't. FDK says, I have 67 boners. Wow, that's hilarious, man. Not. Juju says, I had an interesting day. How was your day? Well, I'm more curious about your day. Tell me your day. Sky says, do you like touching yourself to autistic people? No comment. CR7 says, because we are gay. What? YouTube says he. What are you saying? George says, have you spent night with your family and friends? I've done that before. What says, I played billiards and hit my opponent's balls. Okay. Cruz says, yo, I wouldn't do a terrible job. I don't trust you. Coldslayer says, are those new headphones? They're about a week old. They're new headphones, yeah. CR7 says balls. Okay. Gaming says, does doing this drive you nuts sometimes? A little bit, but only a little bit. Alex says balls. Okay. Ashy says OST dough. Okay. Nate says, how was your day? Good. Solid. The Synth Wizard says, does your mom/guardian let you have sleepovers when you were younger? Yeah. Aaron says, why don't you go to sleep, man? Because I'm not tired. Levi says, do you like playing with your testicles? No comment. Hugo says, My day is good. How about you? Yeah, it was good. I ate eggs, and those eggs are good. Lud says, "Are you cool? Can you answer that for me?" The Windy says, "I lied to my therapist." Okay. GT says, "Do you like croissants?" Yeah. Aaron says, "You look tired though." Okay. History says, "Do you like S.C. Gwynn's books?" I heard he did a book about Native Americans. I didn't read that one. The only one I read was Rebel Yell. Benny says, "Do you like chocolate?" No. Cyber says, "People are weird." Okay. Prim says, "You good?" I am. Sleepy says, "Favorite YouTuber?" I don't believe you. Beaver says, "Hello." Hello, Beaver. Ali says, "In 2 hours and 40 minutes we die." Yeah. The Synth Wizard says, "I hope you got your 8 hours in last night." I basically did. Vis says, "I am doom scrolling and every time I see your stream I am happy." I'm glad. Hellcat says, "It actually looks like you're tired. You might actually be." Well, I feel fine. I'm not says, "When did you last touch grass?" It was like an hour ago. Zyruvi says, "Today was a beautiful day. I went for a walk. I hate headaches." Yeah. Eli says, "Dude, were my balls saggy the other day?" You got the wrong person. Coldslayer says, "What's the song title and by who?" It's by Marcus Persson. I don't know the song title. History says, "Yes, Empire of the Summer Moon by him is pretty good." Oh yeah, I remember the title now. The Empire of the Summer Moon. Maybe I'll get to it. Rap says, "Cooked or raw sushi?" I know sushi. Buggy says, "Hi Don." Hello, Buggy. CR7 says, "True." I don't know what you're saying true to. Juju says, these two guys had a whole TV just set up at the library playing Super Smash Bros. Lamau. I asked if I could play too. I want to do that one day. The Windy says, "Do you do drugs?" No, I don't. Coldslayer says, "Like I said, the song sounds like stomach bubbling." It does, yeah. Eric says, "Elo." Okay. Troy says, "Remember me?" No, I don't. Evelina says, "What is your favorite food/fruit?" Definitely orange. Mr. Bean says, "You hate disabled kids." That's incorrect. Bean says, "Ranky or massive?" What? Henry says, "Hi." Hello, Henry. Ninja says, "You're awesome, bro. Keep up the good work. Thank you." Alice says, "Do you have like boba?" Do I like boba? Not a fan. Porma2 says, "Best pillow setup." I just use one pillow. I usually put my arm under the pillow. History says, "Stonewall or Lee?" Stonewall. Kerr says 67. Okay. Kai Y says, "What do you think about Jax VR dying?" I don't know who Jax VR is. And Levi says, "What games do you play?" I play Rainbow Six Siege. Authoritative Figure super chatted $2. Thank you, Authoritative. The guy in your profile picture does not look authoritative. He looks gentle and meek. Anyways, thank you for your super chat. Bass Player says hello. Hello, Bass Player. Emberd says, "Hi, do you remember me?" I do. Blaine says, "Do you like pizza collage?" What? Sign says, "What do you do?" I do a variety of things. Many things, actually. Juju says, I think they were homeless. They were chill, though. It was cool they let me play with them. Homeless people playing Super Smash Bros. In the library. That's pretty cool. Cyber says, "You need to get some mods in this chat, bruh." No. Life says hi. Hello, Life. Uzi says, "Would you touch a man's dick if Epstein took you to his island in Rosa Parks?" I think you're crazy, man. Life says hi. Hello again. Butter says, "Who will say toilet poo sigma?" What? Cod says hello. Hello, Cod. Prime says, "My dog died. I'm sorry." Liam says, "Bro, are you even seeing me?" I'm seeing you right now. Nate says hi. Hello, Nate. Porma2 says Jack's VR isn't dead. He's just in third person. I don't know who that is. Kai says Jack's VR was a Gorilla Tag content creator. He died in his sleep. His mom and dad needed to pull the plug on him. Is this real or fake? I genuinely don't know. I think it's fake. Koya says hi. Hello, Koya. Chantel says my dog died. I'm sorry. Butter says spam hello. Let's give him money. What? NC says remember me? Remember me? You are very annoying. I hate that question. Evelina says is streaming your favorite thing to do? No, but it's entertaining. Kit says hi. Hello, Kit. Brad says I'm about to head to the gym. Please give me a pickup line to use for the day. Literally anything not too out of pocket. I would never use pickup lines. Just go in with small talk. Jay says, what is your favorite movie? I like Full Metal Jacket. Penelope says, OMG, me big fan. No, you're not. Kaz says, do you play baseball or no? I don't. It says, what are you playing? I'm playing YouTube live stream, read chat messages. Richard says, bro, I want a game, and I want to get a girl. Okay, good luck. Juju says also, a random guy came up to me and had a conversation with me and bought me lunch. I was like, bet, free food. Oh, that's sweet. Koya says hi. Hello, Koya. Connor says 6767. Okay. Avac says I'm subscribed. Okay. Scooby says the library we have are absolute dicks towards homeless people. They made a frame and anyone with a backpack that looks homeless has to put it inside this metal frame. If it doesn't fit, then no entry. Okay, I haven't heard of that. That's interesting. Charlotte says boobs. Okay. Ashy says I'm a new sub. Okay, welcome. Matthew says hi. Hello, Matthew. Link says Jack's VR did not die, you liars. Okay, so it is fake. Got it. Cola says, would you marry me? No. Jack says, yo, what's up? Hello, Jax. Emberd says, drink water. I'll do that soon. Z-Man says, do you have any tips for physical therapy? I never did that. Zero VR says, do you have a VR? No. Cool says, what do I do now? Help me. I'm divorced. I don't know, man. I'm sorry. Good luck. I am says, hi. Hello, I am. CR says, ... Okay. Girly says, so I changed my profile picture during that time. Let's hope it's Girls for Life donates and says, make Wenda moderation. What? Juju says, and then I caught a dawn stream while at my favorite cafe. Really interesting day for sure. Yeah, that is interesting. It is. That's cool. Hyper says, wash your face. My face is clean. Jay says, last thing you want in your Burger King burger. Foot fungus. Nate says hi. Hello, Nate. Marina says whatever that is. Okay. JS says, asking a teenager to help you with your divorce. Yeah, that was silly. Essence says hi. Hello, Essence. KVR says, where is K9? What? Lucas says laughing emoji. Okay. Sir Reginald says, what is the background music called, Don Benitez? I don't know, but the creator is Marcus Persson. The Synth Wizard says, is it morally wrong to go out with your friends while sick knowing there's a good chance you'll get them sick too? It is, but I say do it anyways. 9Mix says, today is my birthday. Happy birthday. History says, Sherman or Grant? Sherman. Froggy says, they tried to take my skin. Okay. Nugget says, who's your favorite singer? I like Tom York. Rachel says, bye. You never saw me. Well, I did there. Bobby says, oi, how are tips to get good at Siege? I don't know. I play the game weird. I griefed my teammates. I was healing the enemies with Doc earlier. Essence says, do you like Among Us? No, I don't. Zyruvi says, can you name 3 related things to Cyberpunk? When I think of Cyberpunk, I think of the unfortunate initials. It's unfortunate. Ramon Martinez super chatted 200 pesos and says, if you can't show the hog, can you at least show the outline? I'm not doing that. And you know I'm not doing that. You've asked that before. And by the way, the timer is locked. I started the stream with the timer locked, so yeah, the timer's locked. Thank you for your super chat. Can says, you like metal? Yeah, it's useful. Jen super chatted and says, make me mod Zaddyzon. I'll do that. I'll make both of you guys mod, Ramon and Jen. Ramon and Jen. 1 second, please. Huck says, John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Yeah, I've heard that before. Jen and Ramon, you guys are both moderators. Thank you guys. History says, favorite R6 operator, Blitz. It's so funny when you flash someone and they run around like a headless chicken. Brad says, I'm about to head in the gym. Please give me a pickup line. I already read that. The Synth Wizard says, why didn't you specify that the timer's fucking locked? Well, the pin... Oh, God. Oh, that, I did mess up. Huh. I thought there was a pinned comment saying it was locked, but there wasn't. Okay, I'll add the time anyways. The timer is now locked, but I'm sorry, I made an error. But I'll add the time. Lab says, I'm a Therian. I don't care, man. I'm distracted by how I failed. 1 second, please. Anyways, the timer's locked. Let me add the time for your super chats. Time added. Jen's time is now added. Zen says poo. Okay. Snake Eyes says, do you smell like sandal? I don't think so. Bob says, are you good at Siege? I was platinum in 2018. History says, do you hate Orcs players that counter you? Yeah. I mean, Orcs isn't that popular, so I don't really have to worry about that too much. Ember says, drink water now, quick, hurry. No. Juju says, de accord is okay in French. De accord. JT says, oi oi baka. Okay. CR7 says, what is your favorite food? Mine is pizza. I like cheeseburgers. Royal says, Jax VR is real. He really did die. I might search that up after the stream. Axel says, you said you were indifferent to femboys a few days ago. Why did you lie? I mean, I am indifferent. SLI Origin super chatted $2 and says, how do I keep the kids in my basement quiet? If you have kids in your basement kidnapped, you really should turn yourself in. Thank you, SL, and I'm sorry that it took a while for me to read your super chat. History says, do you think Stonewall was autistic? People think he is, but I don't think so. Az says, are you a goober? No. Jen says, I'm calling the cops. I mean, he's probably being playful. KVR super chatted $2 and says, do you hate 67? Hate? No, I don't hate it. I think it's slightly funny. Thank you for your super chat, KVR. Brad says, bro, I'm not getting any replies to anything you say. What was the line? I said don't do a pickup line, just do small talk. Pickup lines are cornball stuff. Kyler says, name 2 War Thunder tanks. I don't have a clue, dude. Boss says, oil up. No. Oak says, I'm moving house and my room will be the size of a whole floor. Okay. Jen says, I am too. Yeah, I knew that. I don't know why I'm being so serious. Big Nate says, do you know that hedgehogs are lactose intolerant? No, I didn't. Brad says, Brad, just tell girls your pants have pockets, they'll get jealous. Yeah. Little Monkey says, hi, hello punch. Smooth says, are you ready, Don, for what? Country says, ooh, what? Ember says, you seem more awake this stream to other ones I was in. Yeah, I'm a bit more, alive, I guess. History says, Union or Confederacy. I've read more about the Confederacy than the Union, these past few years. Real says, what's your favorite pickup line for a girl? Did you not hear me earlier? Mr. Humble says, when it's pee-pee time, it isn't poo-poo time. Then why is poo-poo time a pee-pee time? I don't care. Goofy says, what your type in woman, not, brown hair. Savage says, finish the lyrics, 1738. I don't know the lyrics. Charlie says, where you from? The United States. GJ says, can you tell me the requirements to be a mod? The requirement is to send a yellow super chat like Jen did. She called me Zaddy Zon, which is not necessary. You don't have to compliment me. You just need to give me money. Fred says, I can smell you from the UK. I'm going to eat you. Okay. The GT says, what's your favorite fruit? Oranges with salt. Richard says, do you play Fortnite? Yeah. Jen says, yes, call him Zaddyzon. No. I'd actually prefer if you didn't do that. Kai says, it's real, he died. It's actually real. I'll read about it after the stream. History says, I'm starting to really like you. Okay. Porma2 says, what goes into a burrito first? I don't know. I don't make burritos. Elliot says, what is racial slur? What? Kato says, can I add you on Fortnite? No. Zay says, hey, what's the biggest donation you've ever received? Singular donation? $300. From a dude named Big Dick. Jen says, what about Zaddy Don or Daddy Zon? I don't like any of that. Jig says, Addy Chew. What? Days says, are you gay? I'm not gay. Sage says, want to touch tips again? I've never did that with you. You've got the wrong person. Not says, what is your favorite game? Mine is Red Dead Redemption 2. Mine is Red Dead Redemption 1. Jen says crying emoji. Okay. Juju says Don likes big dick. Yeah. Dark says, are you Sigma? No. It's Cap says, can you realize me from your basement, daddy? What? Real says, no, I did not hear you earlier. So what is your favorite pickup line? I said that pickup lines are corny and that you should just do small talk. Caleb says, start digging in your butt, twin. No. Sir Reginald says, I found the Notch video. This music is from Don Benitez. Awesome. Yeah, it's like his video game that he's working on. It's cool. Aw says, I'm in your basement. No, you're not. Jen says, I will call you only Zon from now on. Okay, that's okay, I guess. Ez says, what is your favorite food? I like In-N-Out cheeseburgers. Porma2 says, make Wenda moderation. Is there even someone named that in the chat? I don't think there is. Mr. LC says, crocodile face. Okay. Dark says, do you like eggs? I do. Yeah, I love eggs. Dub says, look behind you. No. Mitt says, do you play Minecraft? Yeah, I do. KX says, yo, it's the nonchalant king back again. Okay. Bumble says, I'm comforting mommy but upgraded zaddy. What you think? I don't know. Boy says, it's always nice to find your live stream. Don't know why, just is. Thank you. Authoritative figure super chatted $10 and says, if I become a mod, do I have to do anything? Because I don't want to do that. That's a good question. And the answer is no. And further, I don't want you to do anything. I want you to do nothing. I will make you a mod, authoritative. You are now a mod. Don't ban people, don't delete messages. I actually want you to do nothing. History says there is a group of hawks circling around me as I lie in a field right now. Good luck. Juju says mods just get to look cool. Yeah. Gotcha says, do you play Roblox? No, I don't. Sebastian says daddy, waddy. Okay. Pixel says, so you like Palm Beach Pete? No, I don't like Epstein's doppelganger. K and Y says, what's your favorite color? I like red a lot. By the way, if like you might be, your stream might be delayed, by the way. I think there's a lot of you guys in chat that are not, like, the stream is delayed for you. You might want to refresh the stream. Ramon Martinez super chatted with 150 pesos and says, dating advice. Monitor her schedule for 2 weeks. After that, start accidentally bumping into her. That's very serial killer-like, but I mean, I guess it could work. Thank you, Ramon Martinez, for your super chat and for answering that one dude's question. I appreciate it. Jen says, the fuck? Yeah. Mr. LC says, that's creepy advice. It is. Maybe says, you're stupid. Okay. Honey says, do you listen to Godspeed You, Black Emperor? I've listened to that one album, like Hands to the Sun or whatever. That was a nice album. Rachel says, my cat might have cancer. I'm sorry. Juju says, if I owned an island, I would do something cool with it, like turn it into a tourist attraction. Okay. Calm says, are you gay or a guy? What? Steph says, hi. Hello, Steph. Belling says, goo goo gaga. Okay. Mugly says, do you consider idiot as a compliment? No. Ab says, Messi or Ronaldo? Petitive fruit. Just Swimming says, I'm jack-o'-lanterning right now. Okay. Smasher says, how's your day going? It's going solid. Juju says, I won't have a weird island, I promise. Yeah, I believe you. Reese says, dick and butt. Okay. Deer says, what? Why did you get in return for trading your laugh with Satan? What? Cody says, yo. Hello, Cody. Max says, you going to femboys? Nope. Dark says, do you have a job? Maybe. Curtis says, on LOD. What? It's Cappy says, honey, it's time to get off now. It's been 3 hours. I haven't streamed that long. Not Sophie says, why are your eyes red? Because I forget to blink. Maybe says, I was JK. Well, I don't know what you're referring to. Mr. Daniel says, sup Don. Hello, Mr. Daniel. Max Football says, say homosexual erection. There you go. Mr. Humble says, what should I goon to? No comment. Ha says something in Russian even though I'm talking in English. User says me. Okay. Reese says, go to sleep, honey. It's been blah 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 amount of days. I'm just fine, man. Beans says blah, 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 blah. Okay. Mr. Banana says, Can you say merman? There you go. John says, hello, do you remember me? Yeah, your profile picture is memorable. Nico says, who is chopped cheese? I don't know. Sports says, do you have a girlfriend? I keep that private. Mr. Fazbear says, job, child, what? Girly says, grown man, by the way. Yeah. Ab says, do you goon? Maybe. Forrest says, can you say I'm a furry? No. Moore says, please go sleep, please go sleep. No. Cool Kid says, JX, you sex? I don't know. What? Nico says, why don't you say slurs on stream? Because I heard that was hateful, and I don't want to be hateful. Kai says, first it was just an infection and turned into sepsis. Okay. I wonder if that's true. Gotcha says, I love my kitty. Okay. Excuse me. God says, why are you gay? I'm not gay. Eric says, what do you think about the Backrooms trailer? I try to avoid trailers. Cody says, you play Red Dead Redemption 2. I've played online. Perp says, do you know what Therians are? Yeah, the creepy animal people. Aaron says, shout me out please. No, that's so lame. History says, do you think the Cuss had better tactics than the Union? I don't know, dude. I forget a lot of that stuff. Why don't you tell me facts about how great the Confederates were in tactics? Fred says, I'm on my way to your house to eat you. Okay. Nico says, why are these kids so gay? No comment. Jen says, do you have any pets, Zon? I have dogs. Former2 says, the man in yellow from George in the Jungle was a zaddy. Okay. Sports says, what's your opinion on wanking? I don't know, man. Sush says, do you love Minecraft? Yeah, kind of. God says, what's up? Hello, God. Reese says, heard or okay. Atlas says, hello. Hello, Alice. The first captain says, have a good Easter. If that's something you celebrate despite not being Christian. Yeah, I do. I mean, people celebrate Christmas even though they're not Christian. It's not that weird. Mang says, bro, life is not tragedy but is ... What? Your fave says, he is risen. Okay. Dalel says, Fortnite or Call of Duty? I prefer Black Ops 2. Cutest says, do you remember me? No. Juju says, nah, Twilight Dad is better than Curious George's dad. Okay. Reese says, hi. Hello, Reese. Fat Cow says, also, if you like anime, what's your favorite character? I don't know. The no-face guy from that one Studio Ghibli movie. Kinsley says, hi. Hello, Kinsley. God says, how old are you? I am gonna only say that I am not a minor. Eve says, what is your favorite music? I don't know. I don't listen to that much music, unfortunately. Jen says, you like turtles? Yeah. Perp says, oh well, I'm both. Okay. Z says, hey, it's me, Z. My birthday's in the 22nd, if you can remember. Okay. Surfboard says, hey man. Hello, dude. Your fave says, he just said he's not a minor. That's right. Mech says, black. Okay. Red says, do you like my dog? Yeah, it's a cute dog. Soph says, hi. Hello, Soph. CAU says tongue Sahur. Okay. Jay says, I love your videos. Thank you. Kai says, Jax VR. His profile is mine. Okay. Nico says, why you mock me and word slur don't actually say. I don't know what you're on about. Thumbs up says thumbs up. Not Sophie says, how long is your hair? You should be able to see. Jack says, I want to see the boat movie. Life of Pi? Toxic says, you didn't join the Roblox Sunboy roleplay last night. Was wondering if you were okay. You got the wrong person. Maybe this guy is who you're talking about. Ramon Martinez super chatted 100 pesos and says, are you still doing a viewer get together for your birthday in October? No, there was never a plan to do that. I don't want to meet. There's no fan meetup. Thank you, Ramon Martinez, for your pesos. You live in Mexico. I hope the cartel doesn't decapitate you. Thank you, Ramon, for your super chat. There was never a birthday fan meetup thing. History says, the Battle of Chancellorsville was often cited as a masterpiece, but Stonewall Jackson got shot by his own cannon and died. Cannon? I thought he was... I don't think it was a cannon. I think it was gunfire by his own men. Jen super chatted $10 and says, make Porma 2 mod. I will do that. I like that choice. Thank you, Jen, for your $20 in total. King says, are you on drugs? No. Hammy says hi. Hello, Hammy. I'm about to make Hammy a mod. Not you, but the other Hammy. Verse says, I came in my girlfriend last night. Okay. Jen says, they make me laugh. Okay. Mon says, how are ya? I'm good. Sports says, Don, I subbed. Okay. I don't see Porma 2. Maybe he realized there were more important things to do in life than watch me. I don't see him. Porma 2 says, not Porma 2. The first captain says, cigarette pig emoji. Porma 2. Leo says, why are you doing this? Money. Not says, what is your opinion on Invincible? Uninteresting. Jen says, save his wrench for next time then. It doesn't work like that. What I will do is, if I see him in the chat this stream, I'll make him a mod. But not for next stream. He has to come this stream. History says, no, his arm got shot off by his own men's cannon. Really? It was a cannon? Wow. Phantom super chatted $2 and says, make me mod, please. No, that's not how it works. You got close. You kind of know how it works, but if you read the pinned comment, it says, yellow or above super chats give you mod for the rest of the stream. You have to give a yellow super chat like this person, $10. So I'm sorry, Phantom, you did not understand the how it worked. So thank you for your money, but I'm sorry that you had expectations and I'm not meeting them. Justin says Jay. Okay. Cornsy says, are you guys sub? Many people are not subbed. Ramon Martinez super chatted $2 and says, I'm not in Mexico, lol. Huh. Okay. I mean, right there it looks like American dollars, but your past super chat, it looks like Mexican pesos. So were you using a VPN to put yourself in Mexico, but you're actually in America? I don't know, I'm confused. There's 2 different currencies you've super chatted with. Thank you, Ramon, for your super chats. Elvin says, Geometry Dash, quirky face. Okay. Taco says, should I ask my crush out? Yeah. Belly says, are you a Dodgers fan? No. I'm bad says, Don, gambling, gaming when? No plans. Hammy says, I got go, bye. Bye, Hammy. JB says, hi dude. Hello, JB. History says, he survived 20 days but died by the infection. 20 days? Was it really 20 days? Oh yeah, it was, you're right. CG says 67, okay. It's Cappy says, racial slur, okay. Jen says, Porma 2 is gonna be my 13th reason why. Okay, no comment. HP says, why are your eyes red? Are you okay? I'm forgetting to blink. Gamer says, hi, you gay? I'm not. Kit says, what games do you like? I like games where I can grief my teammates. Frosty says, I'm gonna sleep, bye. Bye, Frosty. Michelle says, can I have a shout out? Well, that's such a lame inquiry. Zenith says, do you like eating drywall? No, I don't. Not Sophie says, how much money do you get per day? No comment. CR7 says, yo, Bombaclat. What does that mean? Kai says, I used to always watch Jack's VR, his lives, but now I can't. Okay, I'm sorry. TG says, can you shout me out? Why? 3 says, do some of these comments annoy you? Yeah. Porma 2 says, you talkin', oh, my name, Vitch. What? I don't know what you're saying, but I'm gonna make you a moderator because Jen super chatted and gave you mod. Moldy says, do you like VR? No. It has interesting potential, but not right now. Jen super chatted $10 earlier and says make Porma 2 mod, which I just did. Wow says, do you like 67? A little bit. Nico says hello. Hello, Nico. Rolando says, hi, I'm your mom friend. Okay. Harv says, yo, how's your day going? Good. Pretty good. Moyad. Jamie says hi. Hello, Jamie. Moyad says my toe hurt. Did you hit it on something? Alexandra says LLL. Okay. Pocky says, do you like Roblox? I heard they implemented some new features that prevent predators. Only 11-year-olds can talk to 11-year-olds. I think that was pretty cool. Ab says, guess my age. 18. Marco says, English or Spanish, whoever moves is gay. I'm gay. Someone says, imagine I get picked. You got picked. 1 second, please. 1 second. I'm dealing with a technical issue right now. 1 second, please. I'm almost done. I was experiencing a glitch, so I'm not reading chat right now, but I will read it in about 5 seconds. It's working now. Shrek says 24. Okay. Monkey says, will I be famous one day? Maybe. Ranger says free Diddy. No. MX says, bro, you're high as fuck, dude. Okay. Flynn says hamburger. Okay. Salman says, are you gay? Nope. Juju says, do you ever feel behind in life, or do you... I think everyone feels that way sometimes. Kinsley says, my grandma got hit by a bazooka. Okay. Porma2 says, I will piggyback your success. How so? That sounds interesting. The first captain says, if Porma2 was to be cooked, he would be smoked. Yeah. JB says, guess my age. Too young to be on YouTube. Bake says, how is it going, my Pookie Bear? Good. Deer says, pass the joint. Okay. Nico says, does your racial slur hurt from that was a good trap. I condemn you for trying to get me to say that, but Johnny says, hello brother, have a great day. You too. CG says, bombastic. Okay. Lil Timmy says, there's no too young for YouTube. 12 years old and younger is too young. Moyad says W. Okay. Dead says, don't dodge me. I'm not dodging you, I'm reading other chat messages. Jamie says, yo. Hello, Jamie. Michael says, if you like games where you can grief your teammates, you can eat them in Peak. Well, it's not that fun in that game. Fire says, haven't seen you in the Femboy Discord. I'm not in any Femboy Discords. Artin says, hey bro, how old do you think I am? I'm so bored of this same question. Cringe says, what are the digits of pi? 3.14. The first captain says, how old were you when you started watching YouTube? On my, I don't know, maybe 9 years old. Candace says, blink 2 times if you need help. I'm fine, man. Kai says, do I know you? Yes. Juju says, I thought I was the only one. My parents were married and had a house at my age. There's no way that you thought you were the only one. Thumbs up says, thumbs up emoji. You already did that. It's not as cool when you do it the second time. It actually, in fact, it makes you look stupid. Dominic says, do you enjoy this? Yeah. Stranger says, Shay is amazing. What? CGL says, Batman or Superman? Superman. Dub says, I'm gonna go to the shop. Okay. Whatever says racial slur. Okay. Tim says, are you excited for the Backrooms movie? Yes. Porma2 says, my dad was homeless and my mom was in Miami Club Girl at my age. So I'm basically right on track. Your parents gave you low standards. Okay. Sunny says, if you end the stream, I will donate $500 next stream. I don't believe you. Dub says, say gonna please. Oh god. I did do that. Hammy says, I am back. Welcome back. Porma2 says, crazy diss. I mean, you dissed yourself. Ronnie says, I am always watching you. Okay. Nico says slur. I mean, in pronunciation maybe, but not in the heart. Forrest says, bye y'all. Bye, Forrest. Skit says, what if told you that you read the first part of the sentence wrong? Okay. Death says, why is slow mode on? So people don't spam. Winner says, you single? I am not gonna say. Juju says, only one in my personal life, I guess. Okay. GR says, lol. Okay. Kai says, what is annoying about me? I don't know. All your Jax VR talk is a little annoying to me for some reason. I don't know why, that's the way I feel. By the way, there's a live streamer on YouTube who streams vertical like me in this YouTube Shorts format, and his name is Matthew, and he was a bit of the inspiration as to why I'm streaming right now. So if you keep on scrolling, maybe you'll find him. And maybe you should go watch him right now, because I'm not reading chat messages right now. I'm being boring. I'm ignoring you guys. So maybe you guys should continue scrolling to that guy. I'm making a note of something, so that's why I'm not reading chat messages. 1 second, please. Jessica says, I'm a survivor. Okay. Porma2 says, stop self-sabotaging Don Speth. I had something to do. I had to make a note on my computer, so I might as well, like, yap about something. Corbin says, rose emoji. Okay. Death says, get noob. What? GL says, hey. Hello, GL. Whatever says, okay. Okay. Dango says, do you like brain rot? Well, my brain does. It's addicted. Joel super chatted 2 pounds and says, hello Don, hope you are well. I hope chat just is good too. I am good. I no stomach aches, no headaches. I feel good. Thank you, Joel. Ramon says add 1.5 minutes back to the timer. No, I'm not. It's not that big of a deal. I was making a note. If I went to the bathroom, yeah, but Moyed says, do you go to college or high school? Not high school. Mass says, can you call my autistic brother and wish him happy B-Day? Is that the suicide prevention? That's my guess. Marco says, farm aura for 5 seconds. No. Builder says, what's the note? I'm gonna keep that private. Smack says, is it 7 a.m. here in Australia? What time is it over there? Well, the sun is out right now. CW says, bro, what the fuck? What? Charlie says something. Okay. CGL says, is job a bad word? No. JJ says, hi. Hello, Jay. Whatever says, Don. Okay. Yeah. Dave M says, do you queef? No comment. The first captain says, jokes on Don. I wouldn't scroll because I keep my phone in my pocket so I can listen Don's streams while I do things around the house. That's what I would do if I was a viewer myself. I would feel weird just, yeah, that's what I would do. The Don edit says, W guys, like and sub. Okay. Alice says, I'm in your walls. Okay. Weird says, I'm a small YouTuber. Okay. Stranger says, England is better than Shay. I don't know what that means. Juju says, that's what I do. Okay. I would feel weird, like, staring at a dude. Like, my body occupies most of the frame, and that would make me uncomfortable looking at, like, watching that. Ben says 2 pounds raspy. What? I don't know what you're saying. IR says, go to sleep, man. No. Nate says, you brush your teeth. Despite them being yellow, I do. Sunny says, do you remember me? Nope. 20th says, sup, bro. Your eyes are a little red. Yeah, they are. HM says, tongue to her. Okay. Eli says, do you suck or bite? No comment. TT says, go to sleep, bros, a zombie. Okay. Kai Y says, WCW, having a profile picture, what? Porma2 says, your brow line is so strong today. My brow line? I don't know what you mean. Your local says, what is grass, guys? Still joking. What kind of joke is that? Forever says, what color is it? No comment. Aaron says, hi. Hello, Aaron. Tanjiro says John Pork. I like that guy. Flap says Jack's VR died. That must be an April Fool's joke. Link says, are you gonna stream for 2 hours? Yeah. The Synth Wizard says, guys, from me it's 4:30 p.m. dog. What time zone is y'all in? Whatever. Thank you, the Synth Wizard, earlier for letting me know that I was scamming people, accidentally. Porma2 says, get you some gay friends, bro. You need to get put on game. Get the girly ones, though, dude, bro. Ones will want you. Get the girly ones, though, the dude, bro. What are you on about? Moyad says, okay, alright. Alexander says, are you? You're such an annoying NPC. CG says, shout out to Dominic D8. What? Why? No L says V. Okay. Tub says, Ro, what the fuck? What the fuck, what? Lego says, you like Star Wars? I like A New Hope. Mark says, I'll send you 1,500 to end the live stream now. Or do you not want to? I don't trust you. Corroboration says, remember me? No, I don't. Geometry Dash says, if someone is next to you in the urinal, play Sausage Wars. No. Death says, get noob, get noob. What? Kyle says, are you high? I am not. Zyle says, what is your opinion on ice? I don't get into politics. Max says, are you gay, my guy? I am straight, my guy. Goofing says, leaving. Bye, Goofing. TJ says, read my important statement. Well, I read that. The Synth Wizard says, baseball, huh? Okay. Porma2 says, permission to kill. No. In Rainbow Six Siege, yeah, but... Lucy says, have you seen the new Mario movie? I haven't. Ahmed says, hello, Don. Hello, Ahmed. Ariane says, who's your favorite artist? I like Hieronymus Bosch. Whatever says Don? Okay, in monotone voice. Yeah, that's me. Danny says, people that are small content creators like me, never give up on your dreams. You will reach them one day. Yeah, maybe. Joel says, will you ever get high? I think there's... maybe. The First Captain says, opinions on piracy. I don't like it. Like, it's a bad thing to pirate stuff, but I do it anyways. Jen says, can I be mod? You're mod. Aaron says, I'm crying. Advice? Listen to music. Moyad says, what's the craziest thing you could do live? I could end my life. I wouldn't do that though. I guess Ramon says, I would get drunk and high with you, do some camping afterwards. Sorry, I'm just distracted by that crazy comment I said. Anyways, I would get drunk and high with you. That's okay, but I'm good. Porma2 says Kyra VR is dumb. No comment. Artlo says get high. No. Big Back says gotta go. Love your stream. Thank you. Jen says no. The Synth Wizard says took it too far. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. That would be horrible. And I advise people to never do that. Slim says, can you add me as moderator, please? No. The code says don't get high. I'll listen to you. Sir Reginald says, what's your favorite song at the minute, Don Benitez? I don't know, man. Ismail says hi. Hello, Ismail. Mr. Whiskers says hello. Hello, Mr. Whiskers. I was listening to this song Anime is Immortal earlier. The Synth Wizard says I've never gotten high on a Don Benitez stream. Okay. Vortex says hi. Hello, Vortex. Jen says you must send me $10 if you want to be mod. JK. I mean, that is accurate if you interpret it. If you interpret that coming from me, like if you send me $10, I will give you mod. Don't send it to Jen though. Darwin says, hi Don, surely you remember me, right? Yeah, I do. Tisha says, please mod. No. Landon says, what made you start doing this? To build a community. Slim says, scam. It's not a scam, it's greediness. Brandon says, hi, wave emoji. Hello, Brandon. Ariane says, have you heard of Melanie Martinez? No, I've heard of Ramon Martinez, though. The Panties Inspector says, do you remember me, baby? Yes, I do. Homer2 says, getting high to Don Benitez stream isn't it. I've tried 4 substances, and none of them add to the experience. I wonder why that is. Sebastian says, do you remember me from earlier? I don't. Dominic says, have you seen Danger Stan? No. Landon says, can I get mod? I'll give you $20. Yes, for the remainder of the stream, that is. Lacrosse says, what is your favorite country song? The Build a House song from Red Dead. C17 says, you're the golden egg I have been looking for. Okay. Hack says, I like potatoes. Okay. Fear says, Jack's VR has officially died due to 2 strokes in the hospital. Okay. Death says, brush your teeth. I do that. Stan says, I like planes. Stan likes planes. Says, I like planes. Yeah, I do too. The Panties Inspector says, opinion on white woman. I'm not racist. Cheeky says, I love Epstein. Okay. Porma2 says, bro only lasted 2 strokes. Okay. R says, when did you last poop? No comment. Fan says, fun fact. The chance of you reading this is 1 in 192. Okay. Vortex says, can you play Geometry Dash? If I wanted to. Dark says, have you heard of Murder Drones? I haven't. I already read that. Nami says, bad apple, I stole your liver. Say I... What are you saying? R says, when did you last shave your body? I mean, I shaved my face some hours ago. Chris Brown super chatted $2 and says, favorite color in Magic the Gathering. I don't play Magic the Gathering. I had someone I kind of know in real life try to get me to play that game, but I'm not interested. I declined. I did hear that there's a Avatar: The Last Airbender, like Magic the Gathering thingamajig. That's not a color, but that sounds interesting. Thank you, Chris, for your super chat. Candace says, please read this. You're doing great. Keep going, never quit. Thank you. Tyler says, are you gay? Metaphorically. Death says, have you heard of Don Benitez? I have, yeah. Eli says, do you play Tyrone versus Cops? No comment. Aura says, yo, hello Aura. Yob says, what is your favorite movie? I like Eyes Wide Shut. Eddie says, watch the anime Afro Samurai. No thank you. EJ says, love your new mildly sarcastic mocking cartoon voice. Thank you. The Synth Wizard says, what's your opinion on the Don Benitez controversy? What's the controversy? Vortex says, are you good at Geometry Dash? The hardest level I beat was Clutterfunk. Pormatu says, who's Pormatu? That would be you. You misspelled it, though. Lukey says, hey Don, damn, I felt bad for Jax VR, by the way. You felt bad for that child content creator? Okay. Artlow says, adventure time. Okay. The Panties Inspector says, got my homie M-pregged, praying it's mine. What does M-pregged mean? Like with an M in front? I don't know what that means. Jen says, are you in the mafia? I'm not. Russell says, do you have dice? Not on my table, no. Candace says, I got to go, just remember, never quit, keep going. Thank you. The First Captain says, the controversy is gatekeeping oats. Yeah, I guess, yeah. Cold Slayer says, there are people who get mixed up with their words. They're not very smart. Yeah. Jan says, do you have more pairs of headphones? I have one more pair. Ashton says P. Okay. The Panties Inspector says M stands for male, homie. So the male you're talking about has a womb? I'm not hating, I'm just curious. Jen says, Don Benitez sounds like a mafia name. It does. The Synth Wizard says, any advice on rejecting a girl? It's okay if not. Do it in person. Dab says hi. Hello, Dab. Sport says, who's your favorite YouTuber? I like Salcy1, the Minecraft creator. Mud says, hey Don, just wanted to say, keep chasing those dreams of yours. Real talk. Is that ChatGPT? That looks like ChatGPT. Kinsley says, please shout this out, please. I will send $5 if you do. Why do you say 12 and older, but you were 9? How does this make sense? I might crash out. I mean, I was watching YouTube before I should have been. Darwin says, Don, how are you doing? I am doing good. Whatever says anything? I mean, YouTube censors some stuff, so not exactly anything. Gaming says, did you see the new Backrooms trailer? No, I don't like watching trailers. Jen says, if it has dash in the message, it's definitely ChatGPT. Yeah, that's an indicator. The Panties Inspector says, if Sonic was in the room with us, what would you do? I would try to wake myself up. Jackie says, how old are you? I don't know, man. I mean, I do, I don't want to answer. Death says, I watched this shit for over 30 minutes. It's time to go do something more important. RY says, do you remember me? No, I don't. NASA says he's drunk. I am acting like I'm drunk right now. Diane says he's old enough. Yeah. Spuddy says hi. Hello, Spuddy. Jeff says shit. Okay. Do you watch... I feel like I saw you in another stream, Jeff. Death says my battery is dying. Okay. Official says hi. Hello, Official. Lukey says, could somebody tell me what happened to Jax VR? Not me. Whatever says he's breaking character. Yeah, I mean, I was just so disappointed that someone asked me how old I am for the 1000th time. Like, I just got bored and disappointed. Juju says, I regret having a phone as a kid. Me too. Love says hi. Hello, Love. Mega says, have you played World of Warcraft? No, but I've played Wizard 101. I wish I had played Warcraft instead. Diane says, this old lady asks, who is the dead guy? What? Kai says, why? Mega says, have you played World of Warcraft? No, but I played Wizard 101. Why did I say Wizard 101? Because Wizard 101, I think, was inspired largely by Warcraft. Important says, do you remember me? I don't. Kai says, I mean, talking about Jax VR is better than talking about Epstein and all. Maybe, yeah. Cold Slayer says, use your mafia hand. Is that a mafia gesture? Jen says, what year were you born? No comment. Philly says, long time Narcy. How are you, Don? I'm in a weird mood right now. Kane says, do you remember me or not? I remember you. The Panties Inspector says, when were you born and in what hospital? Just curious. No comment. Baron says, don't listen to haters. Be happy. I listen to the haters sometimes. EP says, when was the last time you slept? I don't want to say. Cold Slayer says, is your timer locked? It is. It is. The Synth Wizard says, Don, I think I embarrassed myself last week. Tell me about it. It might be entertaining to read. Daya says, if a blind person dream those he see, they don't see anything. B says, tell me about it. It might be entertaining to read. You're quoting me? Okay. Rowan says, do you like boys? No. King says, you okay, man? You look like you're about to cry. I am okay. Furf says, do you like spaghetti and sausage? No. Porma2 says, 26 is a bit much. What? Nick says, can I have a hamburger? This isn't McDonald's. Dor says, hi. Hello, Dor. Isaac says, do you like to swim? No. Zare says, yellow teeth. True. Srar says, what is your favorite sport? Griefing and Rainbow Six Siege. Salden says, are you good? Take a break, please. This is so easy. I'm sitting in a comfortable chair. I don't need a break for this. Mr. Cheese says, just to let you know, your eyes are red. I know. Death says, I'm very glad you didn't read the text I posted before. Okay. Porma2 says, at Nami, prove it or banned. Maybe he's bluffing, Nami. The Synth Wizard says, I was told we gonna take a photo, so I got there and posed with everyone, and it was fine. And then the cameraman said, now a silly one, and I did a silly pose, and no one else did. Oh, I mean, I admire you for doing the silly pose. I mean, I think that's cool that you actually did that. Thrift says, are you my wife, Dawn? Please say yes, thanks. No. Joel says, Nico the teen had nicotine. Okay. Ian says, how often do you do these streams? Every other day. Benjamin says, are you reading Just Chat? Yeah. Thaki says, do you play Roblox? No. Nick says, give me soda and hamburger. That wouldn't be possible because we're not in person. Anything says, can you zip up your collar higher? Yeah, no, I like it this way. Jen says, I'm the #1 Don Gooner. Okay. Victory says, should I subscribe? No. Thrift says, Para, the social, was very antisocial. Yeah. Daya says, if someone is deaf, in what language those who think? I mean, it depends what language they read. Janet says, why are your pupils so dilated? Because I have dark brown eyes and it makes it look like my eyes are on drugs. Dodie says, I'ma eat my moldy chicken if you respond. I guess you gotta do it. Geo says, W stream. Thank you. Simply says, when's next stream? Probably Wednesday. Porma2 says, this mod is fun. I can go to bot channels and ethno snipe. I don't know what that means, and it makes me uncomfortable. Darwin says, Don, you're one of my favorite streamers. Thank you. Death says, you're the before picture in Planet Fitness ads. Yeah. Foundation says, do you hate 67? No. The first captain says, that may be true, Gen, unless it's Dottie. By the way, Dottie on Discord sent me like this sensual video where she was like licking ice cream, something like that. It was a uncomfortable thing to see. User says, why do you like you have alcohol? I don't drink alcohol often. Addy says rar. Okay. Gen says, I'm starting to think I paid for a bot to be mod. Yeah, Porma2 is acting strangely. Shroud says, what's your favorite sport? Basketball. Gen says, give me your Discord. I don't know. I don't really give out my Discord anymore. Porma2 says, I am not a computer. I am not a computer. Okay. Tater says, do you support LGBT? I do. Blue says, hi. Hello, Blue. Ian says, my dog beat cancer. Okay. Legend says, are you Muslim? Alu Akbar. No, I'm not Muslim. But by the way, I did not say Alu Akbar in an offensive way. I just randomly thought to say a Muslim term. Survivor says, your time is almost up. No, it's not. Benjamin says, how much does a Big Mac cost? Like $5. Patricia says, I like you. Okay. Some says, bro, I'm literally Muslim. Okay, cool. Gen says, I promise not to send videos of me licking ice cream unless you want that. I mean, no. The Panties Inspector says, I'm Muslim too. Okay. Good username says, bro, I missed you. Okay. Ian says, Don, I hope you're having an amazing day. Thank you. Ian says, can I date you? No. M says, 100%. Okay. Kai says, I'ma go bye. Bye, Kaya. Ian, do you like being named Ian? I think Ian is a kind of... I think being named Ian is kind of like being named Eugene. You know? SML says Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry. Looney Tunes. The Void says pre-recorded. No. MP says W stream. Thank you. User says, do you play Roblox? Do I look like I'm 6 years old? Shah says I'm Muslim. Okay. Era says, why are you gay? I'm not gay. Gaming says, have you watched the show Raising Hopes? It's from 2011. I haven't. Ian says, what do you have against the name Ian? I don't know. I don't like it. I mean, it's overall I don't like it. It's kind of good, but overall it seems like a I don't know. Pummer2 says those pre-recorded comments are basically cheating accusations. That's how you know this is quality slop. I What? The first captain says, I have a friend named Ian, but he's gone by Alex ever since we were little. Yeah, it's because the name Ian is bad. I'm half joking, by the way. Jack says, what country are you from? I'm from the United States. Saturn says, is this pre-recorded? You think this is quality slop or whatever Porma2 said? Thank you. Addie says, are you single? Not in a weird way. I keep that private. Porma2 says, I don't know a single Ian. You guys are making G up people. Okay. History says, do you remember me? I do, yes. Saturn says, oh god. History enjoyer, can you give me some Civil War facts? User says Roblox is not for 6-year-old, is for any age, dummy. Well, I've heard that most people that play it are little children. Sama says, but who cares if you're sick, you can still play Roblox. What? Oh, you mean 6. Okay. You type like you're 6 years old. Nick says, can I have soda, hamburger, and french fry? I'm a streamer, not a McDonald's employee. Porma2 says, Civil War fun fact. My family had nothing to do with it. We migrated here during the Irish potato famine. Okay. Kato says, did you read my comment? No. Emma says, do you remember me? No, I don't. Benjamin says, you look Russian. No, I don't. Dominic says, he's back. I am. Fish says, grown man, by the way. Yeah. Liz says, hello, Dawn. How has Monday been treating you so far? Today has been unusual. Not for any particular reasons. I just feel weird. Daya says, if a blind dream those he see, what are you saying, man? Blue says, is Chicken Gun better than Dandy's World? I'm not 9 years old. I don't know what that stuff is. Mr. Cheeseburger says, what toothpaste do you use? I think Colgate. Jess says, do you remember me? The now opening guy. I know you say sexual disturbing stuff. Elijah says, yo, hello Elijah. Durf says, if your power is streaming, what are you without it? I'm unable to make fun of 6-year-olds typos. History says, do you know the first battle of the Civil War was the Battle of Fort Sumter? Yes, I did. Is that battle controversial? Like whose fault was the start of the battle? Can you tell me about that? Eddie says, bro, do you bum chickens at the chicken factory? What? PRP says, please answer. Please answer what? Finn says, do you like fishing? No, I don't. Nick says, give me hamburger. I don't care if you're unemployed. That's not physically possible. Brendan says, God bless y'all. Thank you. Travis says, bro's eyes are red. Yeah. Jetty says, yo, Donnie boy, how have you been? What music do you use for these streams? It sounds nice. You look at the description of the stream. Nick says, I'll give you my address. Still, no, I don't want to give a stranger a burger. Tyler says, how is your day going, bro? Good. A bit better. A little bit better because of Ramon and Jen. They gave me money earlier. Thank you again, guys. Jen, and Ramon for your super chats. And I'm sorry, Jen, that I'm not giving you my Discord. I will eventually, though. Gotham says hi. Hello, Gotham. Shaylee says, history fact. Jews created pornography. No comment. Tyler says, femboy thighs. Okay. No name says, Dawn, are you going to grow your hair out? excuse me, not below my shoulders. Anything says, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Vortex says, yo, I'm back, twin. Hello, welcome back. Liz says, you don't feel good like sick-wise? You should get that checked out. Yeah, maybe I should. Brenna says, sup. Hello, Brenna. Whatever says, Don, what the fuck are your fucking thoughts on Don Benitez? Fuck. I think he should, make the background more interesting. A blank wall is stupid. History Enjoyer says the Confederates under Pierre G.T. Beauregard started the battle. They warned the Union troops to surrender 3 times. Okay, thank you. Authoritative says, hi, I don't want your Discord. I was talking to Jen. Prometheus says, it's getting kind of wild at the back. Have you considered a trim for uniformity? I should do that. I'm just procrastinating. Jess says, do you wash your anal opening when you go number 2? No comment. Jeremiah says, what's your favorite Pokemon? Mewtwo. Death says, do you know mathematic logs are really easy and you study them on 11th grade? Maybe, but I don't remember them. Cold Slayer says, you think women can queef on demand? No comment. Ministry says, get that haircut before the draft. I don't think I will get drafted because I have flat feet. Hatsoon says, can you play Cookie Run Kingdom, please? Why would I do that? The Panties Inspector says, I can queef on demand. Excuse me. Okay. Mr. Cheese says, do you use YouTuber Studios? Yes. Xander says, is 2 to the second power 4? Yeah. Nick says, give me hamburger. I've been begging for so long. No, I don't give out free money. Or hamburgers. Anna says, do you like my name? Yeah. One says, do you support Trump pedo? Trump the pedophile? No comment. Promo2 says, your face dominates so much of the screen, I think decor wouldn't serve much. Maybe some sort of lights. Well, if the background is undetailed, it emphasizes the face because like if most of the frame is undetailed, whatever is detailed, my face is gonna get like I think having a blank background like makes things more intimate. I don't know if you get that, but the first captain says wild at the back. Bruh, when were you even looking at the back of Don's head? Yeah, I rarely turn. Mr. Cheeseburger says cheeseburgers or hamburgers? Cheeseburgers. Vortex says bye. Goodbye, Vortex. Durf says, if something is your power, what are you without it? Oh my god, what? Authoritative says, just got home, bit of a chill in my house. It's a bit chilly is all. Okay. Marze says bye. Goodbye, Marze. It's me, Fred D. Says like, fun video, wishing for a dislike button every unlaugh time. What? Arrival says, are you okay? I am. DRX says, tell everyone to stop saying pointless things. I'm okay with pointless things. Anything says, would you go to a casino? No, but I will bet maybe on Kalshi. Brayden says, I like Beyblades. Okay. Someone says, do you believe extraterrestrials are real? Have they visited Earth? No. Lone Wolf says, I'm just not. Okay. Resonated says, Hi Don, I just started watching. What are your interests? I like 2B2T. Not playing it, just watching it. Marze says, Bri, have the best rest of your evening. Thank you. Whatever says, Don, one time someone told me I was number one with their middle finger, and so I told them, fuck you, you fucking fuck. Okay. Nick says something. Okay. Jeremiah says hi. Hello, Jeremiah. Banana says, do you like kebabs? No. Felix says, hello, I like your hair, it's nice. Thank you. I don't like it, but... Liz says, I want to apologize, Don. The guy, son of Thor, who keeps teasing me in your chat, I have no idea who he is. It's okay. The first captain says, we need Zyruvi with good questions. Yeah. Ayla says, what's your favorite food? I like Wendy's spicy chicken nuggets. Bella says, J.I. Okay. Chris super chatted $20 and says, Don, bud, what's up? Hello, Chris. Hello, Chris, the dive master. What's up? Today, I'm in a weird mood. I feel weird. I don't know how to describe it. Nothing in particular weird happened today. I just feel weird. I think I feel a bit more playful. I thank you, Chris Walter, for your super chat. And I hope that your dive master's scuba diving business is going well. If you've actually gone through with it. Porma2 says, I'll fill Zai's shoes. If you were Red Dead, would you? What's your favorite video game? Okay. Anything says, how could I change my low sub count so I can stream? What? Thank you again, Chris. Chris, you are now a... 1 second. I'm about to make you moderator. You are now an honorary moderator for the rest of the stream. J-Man says, I love your channel. Thank you. Cheeseburger says, rest in peace, Jax VR. Okay. Nancy says hi. Hello, Nancy. Death says, example, log 4 of 2 equals 16. I forget that stuff. I'm sorry. 6 says, how much do you have to dono to get mod? $10. Chris did double the amount of what you had to do. It only has to be a yellow super chat. Cheeseburger says rest in peace, Jax. Okay. Justice says MSM. Okay. Gem says E equals MC squared. Okay. Whatever says Don, thanks for your streams. They're therapeutic for me. You're welcome. Aaron says, who's Jax? Some creator that makes videos for children. Penguin says, I got my Fortnite account hacked. I'm sorry. Jess says, do you want to wash my anal opening? No, I don't. Lenny says, hi. Hello, Lenny. By the way, Chris, the timer is locked. I'm not increasing the timer anymore this stream, but your super chat will add 20 minutes to the next stream. Ronus says, if asking questions is your power, what are you without it? Can you tell me where this this meme, like this question comes from? I'm curious. History says, do you know Chamberlain got a Medal of Honor for his heroic defense of Little Round Top and his successful repel of the Confederate forces? No, I did not. Chris says, nice. Yeah. Chris says, you ready for a W? What do you mean W? when I think W, I think of you super chatting $100, but I feel uncomfortable saying that because that kind of pressures you to give me money. Isaac says, "Do you like M&Ms?" I don't. I don't like chocolate. Ellen says, "Would you like to sleep with me? I'm hot and we can yak." I don't. No. Chris Walter super chatted with $100 and says W. Porma2 says W. Yeah, thank you, Chris, for the $100. That's crazy. I should not be given $100. I don't deserve that, but thank you. Well, I don't know. Thank you, Chris. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for saying W. I appreciate the compliment. When I see a W, I think they're complimenting my stream, so thank you. Tristan says, "Hey, I'm secretly a chicken nugget." Okay. Nick says, "What's the longest word you can say?" I don't know. Cosmo says, "Are we gonna die?" Eventually. Sir Reginald says, "WWW." Yeah. Justice says, "The meme was from an AI skeleton video and Socrates kept coming out of nowhere asking stupid shit." Okay. Thank you for answering me. And thank you, Chris, again for your super chat. And same thing for, as I said earlier, this super chat, this $100 super chat, will add 100 minutes to the next stream. So, thank you for paying for me to stream. History Enjoyer says, "Did you know Grant had the most corrupt presidency in American history?" No. Wow. Taba says, "How do I make a hat out of dried pickles?" I don't know, man. Banana says, "E is F with a D." Okay. The first captain says, "He, in fact, was ready for the W." Yeah, I was. Big Mama says, V/-18 equals poker. Okay. Whatever the government says, super chatted $2. Thank you. Brennan says, "What are your thoughts on pigeons?" They're cute things. Brad says, "Damn jalapenos." Okay, NPC. Porma2 says, "Gulf of Mexico is warmer than my house, bruh." Okay. Muhammad says, "Catchin' a Donito, stream again, yay." Welcome. Whatever the government says, super chatted again and says, "W Chris." Yeah, W Chris. I feel bad like just saying thank you and then moving on, but I don't know what else to do. So thank you again. MP says, "Do you watch football/soccer?" I don't. Big Mama says, "Sub to him," or don't, or dislike. Do whatever you want. History Enjoyer says, "Did you know that I am a certified idiot?" You are. You've taken an IQ test and have gotten like 60. Is that what you're saying? Seahawk says, "Hi, I'm back." Welcome back. Chris says, "Don, let's go diving." I could book a flight to Florida, and I could schedule diving with you, but I don't want to. I'm sorry. I'm not too much of a traveler. I only have a little interest in scuba diving. It isn't a big one, so no, but thank you. Whatever the government says, super chatted $2 and says, "I'm sure he appreciates it and knows you're thankful." Yeah, I am thankful. Chris says, it's all good, I understand. I'm glad you understand. Mr. LC says, I saw a live streamer eating his boogers last night. Ugh. Okay. Lukey says, guys, let's goon to LeBron. Let's not. History Enjoyer says, no, I got 131 on my IT test to apply for a job the other day. Then why are you a certified idiot? Muhammad says, pigeons are high-tech CIA drones. Donita, no. Ellen says, the only way I could do that was if you wanted me to. I could come and... What are you saying? Luke says, will you still be doing this in 31 years? I hope not. I hope not. Anything says, Don, ask Chris to ban me for a few minutes, please. No, even if you ask to be banned, we don't ban people. Richard says, bro, I hate people who ask dumb questions. Okay. It's Cappy says, why is my 3 minutes of freedom, bro? I'm tired of the basement. Oh, what? You're not kidnapped by me, man. History says, what do you spend on the money you get on streams? I'll say this. My iPhone Apple charger, it has a rip in it, and the wire is exposed. I wonder if that's dangerous. I probably should use Chris's super chat money and to buy a new Apple charger. Whatever the government says, super chatted $5 and says, do you notice a difference in your mental state before and after your stream and reading comments? Yeah, I mean, after the stream I feel a little I feel accomplished. I feel a little uplifted, a little bit. I get in a little good mood after the stream. Yeah, that's how I feel. And before I start the stream, I am a little intimidated. I have to sit in this chair and talk for 3 hours. Okay, I am a little I think you know what I mean. Thank you for your super chat. Porma2 says he purchases $12 headsets and calls it an upgrade. Yeah. Mr. says, what's your favorite N64 game? I couldn't name you one. Olive says, Don, you're so animated today. It's great. I am. Nia says, what time is it in your country here in Ireland? Well, I live in the United States, I'll say that. Justice says, John Marston's full name is Joseph Mustard. No, it's not. Whatever the government says, and super chatted. When you first started doing this, were you nervous, and what do you get to get motivated / prepared for your streams? Well, was I nervous? Not really, to be honest. I heard people, their first stream, they're pretty nervous, but I actually was pretty confident for some reason. I don't know why exactly. Just, I got lucky, maybe. And you say, what do you do to get prepared? I always brush my teeth before the start of the stream. I don't want any lettuce in my teeth. I wash my face. I make sure my clothing doesn't have anything on it. I don't know what would be on it. I just make sure my clothing looks good. What else do I do? Yeah, that's some stuff I do. Pretty boring, but that's what I do. iFeed says, did you know erasers sacrifice themselves for your mistakes? Yeah. B4 says, Big, you play Animal Company? I do not. The first captain says, in high school, a mutual came in the school at 8:30 in the morning and pinned me against the wall to say, My ceiling fan is better than your ceiling fan. I don't have a ceiling fan. He was special. Oh, okay. That's a strange story. History says, did you go to college? If so, would I don't want to say. Not says, are we tired today, Donnie boy? No. I mean a little bit. Porma2 says people who never mind. Major says I like booty. Okay. Not him says I'm in Tom Cook's basement making phones right now. I hope not. Whatever the government says, super chatted $5 and says, alright, heading out now. I'm in the closet at work just to watch your stream. Thanks again for your time, and I'll talk to you later. W Chris and W Stream. That's epic that you are watching on the job. Thank you, whatever the government says. And yeah, W Chris, thank you, Chris, for giving me money. Ellie says opinions on dating Rosa Parks if she was a trans man. No comment. The Boom says, hi, I'm new to the channel. I love your videos. Welcome. Thank you again, whatever, and I hope your work day goes well. I don't know says, hi, Donnie Benitez. Hello, I don't know. Perp says, hello, I'm back. Hello, Perps. Hendrik says, I haven't slept for 2 days. Okay. Ellen says, brush your teeth harder, honey. Maybe I should. Gojin says, yo, W. Thank you. Hopefully says, I know you're gay, but do you rather an boyfriend or an girlfriend? Girlfriend. Muhammad says, what is the average choice today? What is the What is the beverage of choice today? It is water. John Paul says, hi, bro. Hello, John Paul. Jack says, yo, what's up? Hello, Jax. I like Bean says, bro, why would they arrest me? 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18. So it was legal. It doesn't work like that. That's disgusting. Justice says, do a Geometry Dash streams. Geometry Dash is so boring to watch. A's says, you have red eyes and yellow teeth. Yeah. It's Cappy says, I pork. Okay. CG says, shout out to Ellie07. Okay. iFeed says, any tips for new content creators? If you make videos, spend hours and hours making thumbnails. Scoof says, do a video where you're in Fortnite. Riley. What? The First Captain says, my very first job was in an office, and my third day in, I heard a guy enjoying himself in the bathroom. Okay. Mike says, please read my comment. I just did. Sarah says, hi, I'm new. You're cool, W. Thank you. No Tire says, she said she was 18. Okay. Madge says, hi, mate. Hope you're having a good day. Hugs from Sweden. Thank you, Swede. Lily says, do you like snakes? No, I don't. Muhammad says, is that Porma2 dude still in your basement, Donito? No, but it seems like he is, because of how much he is in the stream. Perp says, would you rather Roblox, Forsaken, or MM2? I don't know what any of that is, man. Actually, I know Roblox, but the other stuff, I don't know. I don't know. Says, what would you do if I donated the big 500? I just got a big paycheck, so... Well, when Chris earlier super chatted 100, I basically said thank you for 30 seconds and then moved on. And that's basically what I would do if he sent 500. Basically the same thing. It says, who is behind you? Is that your brother or something? There's nobody there. Sarah says, I'm 7. Okay. Mr. Cheese says, do you sleep after your streams? Sometimes. Luke says, have you ever received a chat that made you regret the whole stream? No. Yes says, I wish you have a really good day. Thank you. Ember says, hi, I'm back. How are you doing, bro? I'm good. Ken says, no more cold cuts, Don. I'm still eating pastrami. Hendrik says, should I go to sleep? Yes. Marciel says, hi. Hello, Marciel. Nice, cute bulldog. Mud says, do you like sex? Biologically, yeah. Abram says, favorite superpower? I'm not 5 years old, dude. Klippa says, long time no see. You gay yet? Not yet. Oliver says, do you remember me yet, Don? No, I don't. Death says, if you read this text, I'm gonna type my deepest and darkest and most protected secret. Okay, I read it. Type your secret. Ministry says, have any chat made you laugh? Yeah, yes. DDD says, hi, how are you? Pretty good. I'm a little tired, actually. Ma says, how can we extend the timer? You can't. Zuffer says E. Okay. Owen says hi. Hello, Owen. Muhammad says, W. Chris for contributing to Feed Porma 2 and all the other 12 kids in Donito's basement. Okay. Duel says W. Okay, thank you. Alexandra says, bro, go to sleep. Look at your face is better to Z. What? No Tire says, have you ever bum fucked a femboy before? No. The first captain says, oh, the other day you said you don't know what Home Movies is. It's an old, rough, animated sitcom with dry humor. Haven't watched it. And doesn't ring a bell at all. Klippa says, what the fuck? What's wrong with your eyes? You okay? I feel fine. Alexandra says, bro, this Z means sleep. I am not dumb. I did not mean to call you dumb. Death says, I'm gonna text it 3 times. Go ahead. Ivy says, UAL. Why? Koi says hi. Hello, Koi. Jersey says, can I spend time with your girlfriend? Why don't you be bold and just commit infidelity and just don't have my permission? I'm joking. Echo says, do you watch Stranger Things? Please respond. No, I don't. Anything says, stick a toe in a chocolate starfish or smash hot dog water. No comment. X says, can you speak what you know in Spanish for 2 minutes? 2 minutes? It would just be me saying hola for 2 minutes over and over again. Yo Vint says infidelity. Lol, yeah. Rip says my meat is hard. Okay. Brawling says waffles or pancakes. Pancakes. You know, actually, waffles. Mar Gun says, I love how you say okay, but I think you should get some sleep. Alright. Random says, can you add the cooldown? I think 7 seconds slow mode is good enough. Rail says hi. Hello, Rail. Nando says 67 or 68. 67. Skull says, do you like mosquitoes or flies? Obviously flies. Yalakan says, I ate my sister. Okay. That's either incestual or cannibalistic, and both are bad. GGT says, I'm not gay. Okay. Muhammad says, Wednesday 9 p.m. usual spot. Don is my meth dealer. Chat. No. Mona says, do you watch anime? I have watched Spirited Away once. Area says, is that AL? Do you mean AI? Do you mind not being so impulsive and reviewing your chat message before you send it? T-Lore says, are you pessimistic? Yeah. Merritt says, do you like your mom or your dad? Both. I Like Bean says, uh-oh, I poop, ah ha ha ha, funny poop, poopy. Okay. Ember says, drink water. I'll do that, that's good advice. Klippa says, someone please donate to end the stream. That's not a feature. Jake says, is it late for you? I don't say. You should know that. You've been in my streams for a long time. I don't say the time. Lacey says, do you live in Area 51? No, I don't. Justice says, drink water. I just did. Drake says, what is your favorite game? I like Minecraft. Muhammad says, when are we getting that standing live, Donito? It may be in a year. It could be a long time. Mr. Danny says, tomorrow it's my birthday. You want me to say happy birthday? Okay, happy birthday, Mr. Danny. Mike Wheeler says, can you say I'm not gay to the camera as if you're reading something? No. I mean, I guess I just did. Nate says hi. Hello, Nate. Rail says, what country are you from? America. Ahmed says, when is your B-day? My parents told me to not say that on the internet. Klippa says, this is not healthy. 1 hour and 20 minutes. Are you long time? And you look tired as fuck. Well, whatever. Ember says, what was your favorite school subject? History. GGT says, I'm really not gay. Same. Shiva says, go sleep. No. Merritt says, do you like Doritos or Lay's? I like Doritos. Perp says, then would you rather Roblox or Minecraft? Minecraft. Roblox is for toddlers. T-Lore says, do you plan on making videos anytime soon? I mean, I kind of make videos like right now, but I don't release them. Will I release videos? It's gonna be a few months. Racial Slur says, why do you kiss hot dogs before you eat them? I don't do that. Ramon says, what's the dono amount to add 4 more hours to the timer? Is 200 cool? No. You could tell me to, yeah, never mind. Kay says, please smile at least. I will later. Ember says, have you ever baked something? If so, what? I haven't baked in years. Mike says, are you depressed? No. I'm a little tired. Joe says, I am king. What about you, headset man? You're a king? You're royalty? Okay. Former 2 says, favorite nerds flavor. I don't know, dude. I know Nerds gummy clusters. There's like different types of Nerds gummy clusters, like different bags. Like I know there's like a standard bag, and I think there's a blue bag. I don't remember if the blue bag tastes good. Klippa says, bro, don't force yourself to stay awake. This will damage your brain. Maybe. Emotune super chatted $5 and says, would you rather be a spider for the rest of your life or be a dinosaur that will go extinct? Being a dinosaur sounds like a more interesting life. And I mean, whether you're a T-Rex or a daddy long leg, you're both gonna die. Every living creature dies, so it doesn't make difference that dinosaurs went extinct. Poma2 says, boo, bring in Zyruvi. What? Goat says, can you order for me fried chicken? No. Thank you again, Emotune. Beanie says, what is a question no one has asked to, but you've wanted to answer? I'm lost. Divine says, would you rather be racist or gay? I'll cross that bridge if and when I get there. Actually, I take that back. No comment at all. Porma2 says, Basted in lard, call me cultured swine. What? Drew says, how is your day? Good. UTZ says you're dumb. Yeah. YT says, bro, go to bed. No. The first captain says, I once had name brand Nerds gummy clusters that had juice in the middle like Gushers. That sounds good. What are they called? The snow pigeon says porn. Okay. Pornography. The new drug. I don't know why I'm lingering on your message. CL says you're the goat. Thank you. Official says, can I spam? I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, I'll dislike you, but you can do that. Merritt says, why don't you want to go to sleep? Because I have an obligation. Ozzy says, listen to my poem. Roses are red, some flowers are green. Can't wait until you turn 18. Ugh, okay. Muhammad says, Donito, bro, you got minus 80 PR. I will be your trainer. What are you referring to exactly? Klippa says, I suck on my big toe when I get nervous. It calms me down. Okay, that's so weird. Alumi says, hentai does more damage than regular porn. I can see that. The bird says, do you goon? No comment. Abdul says, are you going to the gym tomorrow? No. Honey says, Jesus loves you. I don't think so. I love says, is that a wig? It's real hair. Anything says, why chat talking about poop and porn? Because they're I don't know how to explain the psychology. Crusader says, I disagree with that statement about hentai. It's highly situational. Okay. Porma2 says best things. What? Honey says, why wouldn't he love you? Because he's not, he doesn't know me. It's your boy says, you remind me of the dude from GTA. You couldn't be more vague. Scenario says black people. Okay. Mona says, do you watch MHA? No, I don't. Clip says, I love your videos. I don't make videos. Psych says, I watch MHA. What about you? I don't even know what that is. Yeast Infected Monkey says, I like your headphones. Thank you. Porma2 says, you low-key or Laszlo? Uh, yeah. Also Michael's son. But Laszlo, I see that. No says, I got my girlfriend's wet. Okay. Death says 1v1 in Minecraft. No. Minecraft PvP is idiotic. Muhammad says, I could see Donito being Trevor from GTA 5 in a few years. No. Aqua says, what games do you play? I've played GTA 5 online, and I remember playing RPGs versus Anternos, RPGs versus Insurgents. Porma2 says, you sort of look like Lamar. No. Sussy says, get a job. Okay. Ember says, favorite season? Mine is autumn. I like autumn too. I love chocolate says, I like porn. Okay. Samantha says, do you like sweet candy or chocolate candy? Raul says, how do you? What? Lurk says, get something to drink, my guy, or go put some water on your face. You look miserable, my guy. My guy. I mean, I feel a little bad, but it's only 1% bad. I overall feel good. I think that's unnecessary. Cam says, Jesus loves you and died for your sins. Thank you, but I don't believe in that. Someone says farter. Okay. Brendan says, I'm back in was the person. What? Porma2 says miserable. Toaster. Longitude seafoam. Okay. Simon says Michael t-shirt. I am being kind of formal like Michael. Wooba says this message is not available due to inappropriate behavior. Okay. Clip says, why aren't you playing something? Because what makes the medium of live streaming special is chat messages. The chat is what makes streaming special, so I focus on the chat, not playing a video game. Raul says, how old are you? I'm not a minor. I love chocolate says, I like porn. Okay. Ben says, I like your stream. Okay. Crusader says, have you considered streaming on Twitch? No, not at all. Muhammad says, someone said why you delete your streams. Well, he doesn't. You'll find them in a playlist. Exactly. Porma2 says, grief on stream. Take donos for different grief requests. I have thought about that. But the grief request thing, no. I mean, I think I know better than my audience. I would take... Yeah. Alumi says, do you know what the best thing about college girls is? I get older and they stay the same age. Okay. Rael says, which country do you wish you could go to? Peru. Mana says, you should watch My Hero Academia. No, I shouldn't. Death says, 1v1 in Minecraft. No, Minecraft PvP is horrible. Justice says, Red Dead Redemption 1 or Minecraft? That's a good question. Minecraft. I don't know. Red Dead, I don't know. That's a good... Porma2 says 21-year-olds are the best in my opinion, just because there are 20 of them. No comment. T-Lore says, are you more of a night owl or a early bird? I'm a bit of a night owl. Which one am I? I don't want to say. Roblox says, do you have a girlfriend? No comment. Alumi says 1v1 IRL. No. Dave M says, be kind, rewind. Okay. Newbie says, name a soccer player for an edit. Petative fruit. Vulcan says, are you human? Yes, should be obvious. Ahmed says, I love you and wish you an amazing day. Thank you. TMG says, gay. I'm straight. PRP says, hey dude, I'm becoming a big entrepreneur by selling your pee. Please give me a shout out. That's not real. Big says gay. Okay. Anything says, did you check your mailbox yet? Did you put a pipe bomb in there? I mean, no you didn't. I don't know why. You're just being silly. Blue says, can I get a shout out? No. Rant says HD HFH. Okay. Day says, ask your dad if you're adopted. No. King says, are you gay? I'm heterosexual. Bakel says, I love sucking on men's dick. Good for you. I love says, I like dicks. You too? Both of you guys? Okay. It's your boy says, I hate the kids that play Roblox. Okay. Elami says, wins Don Con. That would be so lame. Flower says, poor man. What? Simon says, do you remember me? No, I don't. The edit says, I liked and subbed. Can you shout out, my name is Ariel? No. That would be... That's... If I shouted out everyone that subscribed to me, that would be so lame. What a horrible stream that would be. TMG says, what is heterosexual? It means I like females. Former2 says, it wouldn't be lame if we all dressed like you and licked each other's faces. I mean, if I was a pornography like Bonnie Blue kind of creator, then maybe that would be cool, but I think that's not my style. That seems gross. Ilami says true Former2. Okay. AW says, what's your length and girth? No comment. The first caption says, Don Con would be a bunch of gooners and like 10 dedicated fans. Maybe, yeah. Dottie would be there. Simon says, what gender are you? I am a dude, a male. Ayla says, what device do you use? I use a desktop and a iPhone. Puma2 says, what genre are you? I don't know, dude. Skylar says cannibal. Okay. Bakel says, bend down for your master. You're not my master. Gloria says, your answers are so boring. I could see why someone would think that. Random says, something red as the fire, rain as blue as you look behind you. What? Fizzy says, you're old as fuck. Okay. AW says, is it micro? Do I have a micro penis? I don't think that kind of stuff is stuff I should be talking about on the internet. Seems personal. Muhammad says, I've been here for 20 minutes, but now I need to go. Don't stay here for too long, Chad. It's not healthy for you. Bye, Donito. That's absolutely correct. If you've been here for a long time, you should leave. Former2, you should leave. The first captain, you should leave too. Who's another guy that's been here for a while? Jersey Mike, I think you should... Maybe you should leave too. Jersey Mike says, did your boyfriend keep you up all night? I don't have a boyfriend. Thank you again, Chris Walter, for your super chat. Survivor says, you will bend a knee to Jesus Christ. I don't see that happening. God says, are you on Adderall? No. User says, do you have a 2-inch stick? I just went over this. The first captain says fine, but only because you're calling us out. I'm glad that you're being responsible. Harris says, you're not alone. I also don't have a boyfriend. Okay. I like Beans says, I have cancer and I will die soon. I'm sorry. AW says, is it horse size then? Again, it's talking about my penis is personal. I don't want to talk about that. Alexandra says, bro, let me tell you something. Roses are red, violets are blue. Go back to sleep before I smack you. I will in an hour. Captain Olimar says fard fard fard. Okay. Okay. Get Jink says, say okay, I like how you say it. I just treated you a second ago, so maybe that'll do. Andrad super chatted $2 and says, what's good, Mr. Don? Been here, but you don't read my comment. Well, because your comment is on the back of a $2 bill, I read it. You figured out how to get me to read your comment. I'm sorry that that I wasn't reading it before, though. That must have sucked. Thank you for your super chat, Andrad, and thank you for being a frequent super chatter. Mariah says, how old are you? My parents told me not to say how old I was. Rule says, it 18 centimeters, bro. Okay. ISO says, I ate 5 homeless people because I thought they were watermelons. Okay. I'm Bad says, Donito, can you please make a second channel for gaming? It would be so peak. I have a temptation to do that, but I think that'd be... I don't trust myself that I would make good stuff. Macy says hello. Hello, Macy. Elami says, I regret not starting to smoke at an earlier age because most of these questions have me cancer anyways. Okay. Andrad super chatted $1. Thank you, Andrad, for your for super chatting frequently. You super chatted this, and then you super chatted this. That's pretty frequent. Thank you, Andrad. By the way, your super chats are gonna add to the timer next stream. AW says galaxy sized. No comment. Jakey says, do you remember me? I do. Mariah says, do you like streaming? Yeah. Money like this given to me by Chris, the rich scuba diver, makes streaming great. Levi says, what's the coolest thing you ever seen? Planes, especially when they're like, when you're driving and you're near the airport and they're like landing and the plane is right next to you, like right above you. Whatever the government says, super chatted $5 and says, came back real quick, W Chris, NW stream, still at work, laughing emoji. Thank you for slacking on the job and visiting the stream. I appreciate it. Whatever the government says, thank you. And yeah, W Chris, that's crazy. $100. Puma2 says, instead of a size or dimensions, how about a body weight percentage? No. Ramon Martinez super chatted and said, well, super chatted 50 pesos and says, it's raining a lot in my home state. It's really wet it's really slur there. You tried getting me to say a slur. I don't like that. But I do like that you gave me money. Thank you, Ramon. I condemn that you were trying to get me to say a slur. Thank you again, Ramon, for your super chat. Circle says, go get a job. Okay. AW says, does it scale multiversal? No comment. God says, wet the back of your fence. Okay. Plumber 2 says, Schrodinger's penis. Yeah. KS says, Trump like them wet too. Okay. Kid says, hi, you look like 20 or something. Maybe. Lurk says, you don't have to tell everyone that it was your parents that told you not to give out that information, by the way. I know. And Rad super chatted $2 and says, no comment. Only Pens fans. Only fans, but the word penis is in the middle. Is that what you're saying? Pretty sexual. That sounds like something I would not comment on. Like, it's sexual and I don't know. I don't know what you mean. But I'll say this: I don't have any plans to make an OnlyFans. Thank you, Andrad. Ember says, goodbye, Donito. Stay hydrated, bro. Thank you. Kyle says, can you take a drink of your water? I'll do that soon. Doggy says, I feel bad for you. You look tired and you have comments you're reading. Thank you, but there's many other people in the world you should instead feel bad for than me. Cozy says, do any comments make you uncomfortable? Yes. Rayan says hi. Hello, Rayan. Andrad super chatted $2 and says, no at all, bud, is my channel. No at all, bud, is my channel. I don't know what you mean by that. You sent 2 super chats that I don't understand. No at all, bud, is my channel. Basic says, Andrad, bro, is rich. No. Chris is rich. Nonetheless, though, thank you, Andrad, for your super chats. Every dollar is appreciated. I don't know what you mean, though. Mr. Cheeseburger says, have you ever raged on stream? No. AW says, what if a tapeworm went up your penis hole? I would be miserable. Thank you for finally reading my comment. Now I'm subbed. Okay. Mare says hi. Hello, Mare. The 2 says, yo, welcome to Chili's. What may I get you today? How about I don't know. I had their cheeseburger, I think, and I thought it was bad, so not the cheeseburger, but What do they have that's good? I don't know if they have anything that's good. Authoritative figure says bye, see you next time. Bye, authoritative. The Creed says hello again, how are you? Are you tired? Yeah. Eben says you look like you're crying. True. God says my grandma got hit by a bazooka, could you save her? I'm sorry, I can't. Andrad super chatted $2 and says it's what my channel it's called I'm promoting here. Ellen says, guys, let's all leave the live so he can sleep. Even if people leave, I'm still gonna stream until the timer goes out because I try to be a man of my word. Andrad says it's what my channel is called. Is your channel called Only Pens Fans? You have a your username is Only Pens Fans on OnlyFans? I don't know, dude. You've sent 3 super chats where I'm lost on all 3. Chill says, am I cool for subbing? No. Puma2 says, is he wearing a Pens jersey? Oh yeah, maybe. I don't know sports, so I wouldn't have caught that, so maybe that's a clue to like what he's saying. Only Pens fans. Okay. It's what my channel it's called, but he's promoting a channel? I don't know, dude, but the Pens sports team is a clue. Get says, are you a good boy? When it comes to never mind. Andrad super chatted $2 and says it's about pens. Oh, so you're just expressing your love about the sports team pens? Okay, I got it. I don't care for the pens, but Indecisive says, should I ask my fine shit out? Yes. Palusa says, what does uwu mean? I don't know. AW says, I like big, black, muscular men. Good for you. Bobby says hello again. Hello, Bobby. Tommy says, say racial slur. No. Meow says shit. Okay. Reconnected says hi. Hello, Reconnected. Autistic says hi. Hello, Autistic. Ramon, why don't you tell me that I can take back the time that you added to the timer? Frosty says ooh. Okay. Sab says hi, gay. I got arrested. Help. My brain doesn't have enough brain power to process that. Meow says, name a car for an edit. Toyota Corolla 2011. PRP says, just to let you know, guys, he posted a new OF video today. Well, not me. Eben says, are you religious? I am not religious. Ministry says, you're a man of your word. Not always. Andrad says, think out the box at Parasocial. It has nothing to do with sex. I just... Sorry that I'm not, figuring out your messages. I'm just... Ramon says, the mouthpiece is too high. I'll fix it. You were supposed to say,
you can go ahead and take 20 minutes off the timer because I sent you 20 minutes. I extended it by 20 minutes and I take it back. Why don't you say that? Unfulfilled says everything has to do with sex. Yeah. A-Line says hi. Hello, A-Line. God says ravioli. Ravioli. Give me the formuloi. Okay. Raylove says yeah. What? Sella says you look like Krebus from the Goffy Gang. Okay. Dave M says Don trying to scam by taking time off that was paid for. It's not exactly scamming. I mean, it's basically a no, it's not a refund. I'm getting permission from the guy that gave me money, so it's not exactly scamming. Eben says, may God bless you, buddy. Thank you. Kid says, alright. Thank you, bye. Also, please be happy. Whatever. Ramon Martinez super chatted 200 pesos and says, time removal dono. Time. Oh, shoot. Time removed. Thank you, Ramon Martinez. By the way, you didn't need to super chat to get the time to be removed. Actually, this super chat is actually going to add time to the next stream. So, but you didn't need to super chat to remove the time. You could have just told me. Thank you, Ramon. Brenda says, are you gay? Because I am. You and I are not the same. Louis says, hola. Hello, Louis. Jersey Mike says, I am back. Welcome back, Jersey Mike. Striker says, visit Epstein's Island. I'm not doing that. Flo says, hey. Hello, Flo. 1 second, please. I'm doing something. Okay. Alana says, hi. Hello, Alana. Vern says, XUG, XUT. Okay. Sab says, green burgers from SpongeBob. What? Joel says, can I stay? Yeah. Even if I banned you, you'd still be able to watch the stream. Diva says, he hates me, crying face. A little bit. Zeus says, it won't let me super chat with the word cream. Huh, that's strange. KS says, can I visit you? No. Dex says, Willie. Okay. Bobby says, yep, definitely Krebus. I don't know what that means. Get Jink says, you like men? Friendship wise. Zeus says, how is cream sexual? I don't know, that's bizarre. Jersey says, I'm going to miss you in 22 minutes. Thank you. Soul says, please remove 10 minutes. The only person that could get me to do that is Jen. Orb says, it's me again. Hello, Orb. Brit says, remove 10 minutes. As I said. Vern says, raw. Okay. Aaron says, who's Jen? It's a person that super chatted earlier. Ray says, have you ever banned someone? Yeah, but I unbanned them. Shimmy says, say baby boo. There you go. Typical says, how many people have you banned? I'll say this. Currently, there's nobody banned. Nobody's timed out. Nobody's banned. Solel says, can you say my mom likes tiny men? No. Diva says, what did I do? You asked me if I hated you, which I don't like. It's kind of meta, but it's true. Pormer2 says, I fed KFC to some parakeets. #savage. Okay. Ben says, brush your teeth. I brushed my teeth. The Illa says, do you clean your room? My room is clean. KS says, I feel sorry for you. You deserve more subscribers. I mean, I've surpassed my expectations. Like, I don't know if you noticed earlier, but like some dude super chatted $100. Like, I feel good about my success. Orb says, can you time me out for 10 minutes? No. And thank you again, Ramon. People like Ramon, like, make me feel good about my success. Ben says, I'm sorry for telling you to brush your teeth. I feel bad now. I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I don't mind it. God says, ravioli, give me the formula. Okay. CJ says hi. Hello, CJ. Chloe says hi. Hello, Chloe. Justice says, I'm bad at jumper in Geometry Dash, but I'm good in real life, cause I jump on Bonnie Blue's femboy. Cock. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. Dex says bumhole. Okay. Annie says, I remember the time someone donated like $700 like 3 months ago. I don't remember that. Jojo says, how are you doing? I'm doing good. Ollie says, you should be live in oneness of Almighty Allah. That's fake. AR says, hey, I thought you were a good live streamer. You want to play some Minecraft? No, thank you. Whatever the government says, yo, Don, how many minutes have been added to your next stream? I think... Oh, yeah. There's 3 hours added to my next stream. Actually, like, I'm gonna start with my next stream with the timer locked. It's so backed up where that super chats right now are actually paying for my stream for the stream after my next stream. Like, you know. Diva says, I'm here to support you. Thank you, Diva. Ehai says, go to... I don't know what you're saying, man. The Illa says, Dawn, do you listen to The Clash? No, but London Calling, the album, is on my list. The guy says, remember me? No, I don't. JK says, hi, bro. Do you believe humans are flying around the moon right now? You're a common viewer. You should know that I do. I believe the mainstream media. Joel says, how much do you like me 1 to 10? 7. Alexander says, rate my profile picture out of 10. 2. Harsh says, just because you are not religious does not mean all religions are fake. I mean, from my subjective point of view, I think they're fake. Kiwi says, what? Zeus says, yo, Joel, that's my name, too. 10 out of 10. Joel. Last of Us. Orb says, say my name, Travis. I just said it. Jake says, how was your day? Good, thank you. Charity says, hi, I'm back from eating. Welcome back. Bentley says, what up? Hello, Bentley. Addie says, it's me again. Hello, Addie. Dave M says Don is a useful idiot for MSM. What is MSM? Felix says you look like a tired stay-at-home dad. Yeah. The Illest says Billy Legit says Billy Legit says. I remember those days. Dave M says mainstream media. Okay. I believe you. Diva says, do you watch football? No, I don't. Vern says nugget. Okay. Ellen says cute fish emoji. That's cute. Oh, that guy's cute. JK says, how long have you been on? 2 hours, 55 minutes. Fen says, have a great day. God bless you. I love your headphones. Thank you. Dur says, yo, what's up? What happened to your eyes? Forgetting to blink. Dalmatian says, did you remove minutes from the timer because Ramon donated? He did do this, yeah, but he didn't need to super chat. And it's kind of complicated, but it wasn't because he didn't need to give me money for me to remove time. Ministry says, forgetting to blink. Haha, it's true. I'm too focused on reading that I forget to blink. Arrow says, my brother's French kisses include Spain and Portugal. Okay. E-High says, yes, it is. What? Yanzo says, have you seen AOT? Age of Empire? No, that's not. AOT? I don't know what that is. Dexo says, Don is not beating the lizard accusations. Okay. Am says, are you single? I keep my relationship status private. The official says, dig bic, like huge penis. Joel says, I agree, that is yes. Okay. Purple says, you are gay. Okay. Merritt says, do you like water or soda? My taste buds like soda. Igu says, yo, you do not know how to take jokes. What do you mean? Adamation says, I know you forget to blink, but what happens to your eyes if you don't? I mean, they feel, I don't, that's a good question I should be asking myself. Eben says, bro is married to his squirty waifu. Nah. Someone says, hello, can you rate song blah blah blah? It's a Russian song. No, I can't. JK says, that's my cat sitting on my lap right now in my PJP. That's a cute cat. Aw, it's adorable. Cuter than that fish. Timmy says, are you a mommy maid? You are a femboy? Neither. The anomaly says, fun fact, there is a lake somewhere that turns living beings to stone. Sounds fake. Dave M says, do you like 67? A little bit. Jersey says, I am going to miss you in 11 minutes. Thank you. Eddie says, hey, do you remember me? No, I don't. Justice says, hello, my mom's name is Bonnie Blue. Okay. Basic says, fun fact, I drink sweet tea from the liquor store. Okay. Jeremy says, I don't have much time left. Me neither. Riley says, hello. Hello, Riley. Junior says, what's your favorite part of your day? Going into bed. Arrow says, have you always looked this deranged? Babies look deranged. Adamation says, people writing Bible verses like it's a church. I mean, I understand it. they're trying to evangelize me. I appreciate it. Ramon says, in order to use up hours, do you do a sleep camp today? I have thought about how that's a possibility, but that's selling out. Diva says, do you have any pets? Yeah, I do. Finn says, good luck on getting 11,000 subs. Okay. Alumi says, we live son and want him to be saved. Okay. Cree says, hi there. Hello, Cree. Cherry says, damn bro, you look exhausted. Might want to get some sleep after this. Yeah. Joe Mama says, what's more yellow, a banana or Don's teeth? A banana. Joseph says, how do you make money? Me streaming is a method. A Dalmatian says, I already subscribed with the bell on, so I don't need to worry about anything. To be honest, I would not do the bell. I'm not that important where you're living your daily life and then a notification just takes you out of the moment because I'm going live. You really should not have the bell on. That sounds annoying. Alumi says, I wouldn't be able to sleep with the camera on me. Yeah, that sounds... I don't know how that feels. Harris says, what happens if the timer ends? I end the stream. The official says, why was there whipped cream on the bed last night? No comment. Van says, remember me? No, I don't. JK says, why do all the women scientists at NASA look like lesbians? No comment. Dexo says, every blink puts a thin layer of tears on your eyes. Okay. Arrow says, what do you call a plane full of bald people? Receding airlines? Nice. Joe Mama says, stream ends? I thought Earth self-combusts when timer gets to 0. I'm not Kim Jong-un or something. Jay says, you like Sonic the Hedgehog a little bit. Lion says, smile. Not on command, that's weird. Edai says, you skip my message. I don't really care. Pickle says, do you also goon with diesel and sandpaper? No. M Sweet says, hello, how's your day going? Solid. A little delirious, but overall good. Diva says, bye. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, who you should be thanking is Ramon. He is a big super chatter, and super chatters directly like cause me to stream more. Like they pay for me to stream. So I would thank Ramon. Flip Flop says VVHVFXF. Okay. Joseph says LeBron or me. You. Change says I am Sonic the Hedgehog. Okay. Mila Bread says bread. Okay. Dexo says Ramon is probably leading a cartel. I mean, according to, to the crazy amount of money he's sending me, maybe he is part of the cartel. I'm joking. Cyborg says hello Cyborg. Steep says, do you like potatoes? I mean, if I like McDonald's fries. JK says the astronauts are talking to the aliens on the far side of the moon right now. Okay. Asayake says, have a great night, Dan. And chat, thank you for streaming. Okay, see you later. Oso Yake. Because he called me Dan. Oso Yake. Sharker says, do you like fish or sharks more? Sharks are fish. Elami says hi Dan. Hello. Arrow says Jeffrey Epstein touched me when I was a teen. I'm sorry. Annie says AOT stands for Attack on Titan. Oh, okay. Asayake says lol, sorry typo. It's okay. Automation says, have you heard of regular show? Yeah. I'm curious about the lost tapes. Pickle says, please send feet pics. No. Jean says, what's your name? I go by Don. Harris says, where? Okay. Alan says, do you like KFC? Not in particular. David says, do you sleep? Your eyes are bloodshot. I do sleep sometimes. Xander says, do you know why aliens don't visit us? Because they haven't found us. Pyro says, do you play any video games? Yeah, I play Rainbow Six Siege, and I team kill my teammates. Jen says, is Don short for Donald? Maybe. X says, do you love Diddy? No, I heard he sexually assaulted people. Why would I like a dude that did that? 3 says HIW long was your longest live. My longest live was 12 hours. By the way, when the stream ends, if you when the stream ends, you're automatically gonna be moved to another stream. I'm gonna raid someone, so that might be interesting. JK says raid us to someone. I'm gonna raid Ali the AI. It's a weird channel, like weird, like a channel. David says, do you play Fortnite? Yeah, I have Black Knight. I want to mention because, never mind. Will says, are you gay? I'm straight. Liberty says Ali is whack. Maybe in some ways, but they are pretty unique. Jar says, will WW3 happen or not? No. Jersey says, what should I do in 2 minutes? I mean, I'm gonna redirect. I'm gonna send you guys to a new stream, a different person. So if you think their stream is boring, don't force yourself to stay over there. Just leave. Lars says hi. Hello, Lars. Basic says, okay, I'll have to go, so thank you. Bye, Basic. X says, are you racist? No. Automation says, lost tapes come out May 11th, after Mother's Day. Interesting. Maybe I'll watch an episode. Alan says, raid someone. I am raiding a weird channel. Some weird person. KRE says, hi there. Hello, KRE. Claire says, I will eat you tonight. Don't do that. Nia says, are you from North Korea? No, I'm not. Obviously, I'm not. Johnny says, how long have you been growing your hair? August. Harris says, what is your favorite book? Wisdom of Life by Schopenhauer. Dexo says, don't break the streak. What streak? By the way, again, I'm rating someone, and their whole stream is you play Wordle in their stream. That's the idea of the stream. You play Wordle. As a viewer, you can play Wordle. I don't even know how you play Wordle, so I'm not even gonna watch the stream myself. But maybe one of you guys will like it. JK says, raid us to @MarkHesterPower. I've already made up my mind. I'm sorry, JK. Mobile says, are you single? Maybe. Faceless says, who's better, LeBron or Kobe? Kobe. A-Line says, bye. Bye, A-Line. Zyruby says, you're not gonna watch the stream? You know what? I'll watch for like a minute at least. Joseph says, why don't you get a haircut? Procrastination. Raylove says, boof. Okay. Coldslayer says, see you next time. Bye, Coldslayer. Faceless says, I'm gonna make a sandwich. I will do the same. Whatever the government says, super chat at $2 and says, came back to say bye before you head out. W Don. Bye, whatever the government says, and bye everyone else.